Before we get started, please like and subscribe. Let me know where you're watching from, and you can support the channel by clicking thanks or joining. If anything kept the town of Millersford forgotten in the folds of the Appalachian woods, it was not its size or its dying economy, but the way people refused to speak about the creek. The creek cut through the trees like a black ribbon, narrow and silent, running behind the last row of houses and into the forest that seemed older than memory. On every old map, it was simply labeled Millersford Creek, but the people who had lived there long enough had other names for it. The Black Ribbon, the Whispering Water, the place you do not look at. Parents told their children the same simple rule: do not go near the creek after sunset, and if the wind ever stops and the water is still, do not look down. Emily Carter had grown up too far from Millersford to inherit that fear. She was a young reporter from Cincinnati with a rented car, a second-hand camera, and a stubborn need to pull secrets into the light. Her editor had sent her on a small assignment, a series about dying American towns. She was supposed to write about closed factories and shuttered diners, not local ghost stories. When she first drove into Millersford, the sky was a low ceiling of gray, pressed down over the treetops. The afternoon light looked tired, drained of color, like someone had washed the world too many times. Houses sat close together along the main street, their wooden boards peeling, their porches leaning a little too far forward. An old gas station with only one pump, a diner with neon letters that flickered as if the sign itself was breathing. Emily parked in front of the town hall, a brick building with a sagging roof and a flag that barely moved. The air was cooler here, heavy with the smell of wet leaves and distant water. She slung her camera over her shoulder and walked inside. The town hall was almost empty. Old photographs of Millersford lined the yellowing walls, showing black and white images of miners, proud families, and parades on streets that now felt abandoned. Behind a scratched wooden desk sat Harold Boone, the town mayor, a thin man with gray hair that refused to lie flat. He looked like someone worn down by decades of the same routine. Emily introduced herself and showed her press badge. Harold examined it, then folded his hands. "So, you want to write about Millersford?" he said. "Not much left to say about this place." Emily smiled politely. "There is always something left to say. I am doing a series on small towns that people forgot. Your town was on a list of old mining communities. I wanted to ask about the history, maybe talk to a few residents." Harold nodded and spoke about the coal mine that had closed 20 years ago, the jobs that never returned, the young people who left. Emily listened, but her eyes kept drifting to a framed drawing on the wall showing dark shapes rising from water. When Harold paused, Emily asked, "And the creek behind the town? Does it have any story tied to the mine?" The change in him was instant. His shoulders stiffened. His eyes shifted to the window. "The creek is not part of what you are writing," he said. "It is not a place for visitors." He refused to answer more questions. Emily left the town hall with her curiosity burning even hotter. Outside, the wind felt colder. As she approached her car, she noticed a boy watching her from across the street. He looked around 12, with messy blonde hair and pale skin. When she looked at him, he flinched. "Hi," she said. "I am Emily." The boy crossed the street quickly, eyes darting. He handed her a folded piece of paper, then ran off between two houses. Emily opened the note. The handwriting was uneven. "Do not go to the creek at night. It remembers faces." A chill moved through her. She put the note away and headed toward the forest path. The trail was narrow, covered in roots and wet leaves. As she walked, the sound of town faded. The forest felt ancient, its tall trees forming a dark tunnel. No birds, no insects, only stillness. Then she reached it, the creek. It lay before her like a strip of black glass, perfectly still, reflecting the twisted trees along its banks. The wind moved through the branches, but the water did not ripple. Emily crouched and raised her camera. A soft dragging sound rose from beneath the water. Slow, heavy, wrong. A bulge swelled under the surface. The water stretched like skin. Then it opened. A hand emerged, pale and long, fingers stretched like twisted roots. It gripped the muddy bank. Another hand followed. Then a head. It was shaped like a human skull, but wrong in every way. Too long, jaw too wide, teeth jagged like broken stones, eye sockets empty and dripping water. It inhaled, and the sound was like the creek being sucked back into darkness. Then it turned toward her. Emily stumbled back, heart hammering, but frozen. The creature had no eyes, yet she felt its attention like a knife against her skin. It knew her face. Her legs finally moved. She ran through the forest, hearing the thing dragging itself along the bank behind her. Slow but certain, a whisper slithered into her mind. "Emily." She sprinted until she burst from the tree line onto the road. The town lights flickered like nothing had changed, but everything had. The creek had seen her, and it remembered. Emily Carter did not remember unlocking the motel door. One moment she had been standing on the roadside, staring at the tree line that hid the creek, and the next she was inside her dimly lit room, leaning against the wall with both hands trembling. Her breath came in uneven bursts. She tried to replay everything in her mind, but the images kept slipping away like wet stones. Only one memory stuck with terrible clarity. The creature rising from the water, the empty sockets, the sound of its breath dragging the world inward, and the whisper that slid through her mind like a blade of ice. Emily. She pushed herself upright, pacing the small space. She needed to convince herself that what she saw was real. She looked through her camera. The pictures she had taken near the creek were blurry, consumed by darkness, as if the lens itself had refused to capture what stood in front of her. Only one photo showed anything. The surface of the creek, distorted, bulging, reflecting a pale blur under the water. She shuddered and shut off the camera. Her instincts told her to leave Millersford immediately, but that same stubborn curiosity that had led her down the forest path now clenched around her thoughts. If the creature existed, if the creek held something ancient and wrong, then someone in this town must have known. Someone had seen it before. She stepped out of her room. The motel corridor was silent except for the hum of a flickering bulb overhead. Outside, the night air was cold enough to bite her skin. Not a single car moved on the road. The town felt deserted, as though everyone had locked themselves inside long before the sun went down. Emily walked toward the diner. It was the only place still showing signs of life. The neon sign buzzed weakly, casting a sickly pink glow over the windows. Inside, a few old men sat hunched over their coffee cups, eyes distant, as if they were waiting for something other than food. She pushed open the door. The bell above it chimed, and every head turned. For a moment, she felt like she had stepped into a church where no outsiders were allowed. The waitress, a woman in her 50s with a clipped voice, motioned her to a booth. Emily sat. Her hands still shook slightly as she wrapped them around a warm mug. She did not sip. She was too tense. She scanned the room. The boy from earlier, Ben, sat in a far corner with his head down. Across from him was a woman who looked exhausted, perhaps his mother. When Emily met his eyes from across the diner, he immediately looked away. She stood and approached him. "Ben, can you talk with me for a moment?" His mother looked up sharply. Her eyes widened with fear, not surprise. "You saw it," she whispered before Emily could speak. Her voice trembled. "Get away from the creek. Get away while you can." Emily sat down slowly. "What is it? What came out of that water?" The woman's lips pressed tight, as if she feared the walls might be listening. Ben looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. After a long moment, the woman spoke. "People think the creek is cursed," she said, "but curses end. This does not. The thing in that water is older than the town, older than the stories we tell, and it remembers anyone who sees it." Emily swallowed. "What does it do?" "It comes for them," she said. "Not right away, not loudly. It does not need to. It watches first, learns their steps, their voice, their face." Emily felt her chest tighten. She looked at Ben. "You gave me the note." "Why?" "Because you looked at the water," Ben whispered, "and it saw you. It knows your face now." Emily's voice cracked. "How do you know this?" Ben hesitated. Then he pushed up the sleeve of his hoodie. His arm was covered in pale marks that looked like fingerprints, long and narrow, pressed into his skin. Emily leaned back, horrified. "It touched me through the window once," Ben said softly. "I woke up and it was just standing there in the dark. Not outside, inside. I never heard the door open. It does not need doors." His mother reached out and pulled his sleeve down with shaking hands. "That is enough," she hissed. "Do not say its name." Emily's voice was barely a whisper. "It has a name." The woman shook her head violently. "Names have power if it remembers yours. It does not want you remembering its." Emily walked back to her booth in a daze. She could barely feel her hands. She left money on the table and stepped outside into the cold night. The silence was overwhelming. Not even the wind moved. The darkness felt too thick, as if the world was holding its breath. She walked quickly toward the motel. Halfway down the road, she froze. Someone was standing at the end of the street. Her heart lurched. The figure was tall and unmoving. She could not see its eyes, but she knew its attention was fixed on her. The street light above it flickered. Once, twice, then went out entirely, swallowing the figure in shadow. Emily took one step back. A wet, dragging sound echoed across the road. No, not here. Not this close to town. She turned and ran, her breath puffed in clouds. Her shoes slapped against the pavement. Behind her, something moved with deliberate, heavy pulls, like a body being dragged across stone. She did not dare look back. When she reached the motel door, she fumbled with her key, hands trembling so hard she nearly dropped it. She slammed the door shut behind her and pressed her back against it, heart racing so fast she felt dizzy. Silence, then a faint sound, wet fingers trailing slowly across the outside of the window. She clamped a hand over her mouth to keep from screaming. The sound moved along the wall, slow, patient, searching. It stopped at her window. A shadow darkened the glass. Something pressed against it, a long, pale hand, fingers too long to be human. The tips dragged downward, leaving streaks that looked almost like trails of water, but too thick, too dark. Emily backed away until she hit the far wall. The creature did not break the window. It did not speak. It only stayed there, as if memorizing her outline behind the curtain. Then, as quietly as it had come, the hand withdrew. Emily stayed awake the rest of the night, sitting in the corner with every light on. When dawn finally came, weak and gray, she peeked outside. The window was marked with 5 long streaks. Her doorframe had mud smeared along the bottom edge, as if something had pushed its way close enough to smell her fear. She grabbed her bag. She needed to talk to someone who knew more, someone who would not hide behind fear or silence. There was only one person left in town who might tell her the truth, Harold Boone, and she knew exactly where to find him. Emily Carter reached the town hall just as the morning fog began to peel away from the rooftops. The sun did not shine so much as it struggled to exist behind a gray sheet of clouds. Millersford looked even smaller than the day before, its streets too quiet, its houses hunched together like people trying to stay warm. Emily clutched her bag tighter. She had not slept, and the lack of rest had sharpened everything around her. Every sound, every shadow felt like something watching. She pushed the town hall door open without knocking. Inside, Harold Boone sat behind his desk, the same dull light slanting across his tired face. He looked up when she entered, and for a moment he froze as if the shape of her standing there was something he feared. "We need to talk," Emily said. Harold inhaled slowly, then gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit down." Emily did not sit. She placed her hands on the desk. "Last night, something followed me from the creek. It came to my motel room." Harold's jaw tightened. "Did it touch you?" "No, but it knew where I was, and it knew my face." Harold closed his eyes as if hearing a verdict he had long expected. Then he stood and walked to a cabinet in the corner. He opened a drawer, pulled out an old wooden box, and set it carefully on the desk. The box looked handmade, carved with shallow patterns that might once have been symbols, but were now too worn to identify. Emily frowned. "What is that?" "Something I hoped I would never have to show anyone again," Harold said. "Something from before you were born." "Before I was born." He lifted the lid. Inside the box was a stack of old photographs and a folded map. He took out the top photo and handed it to her. Emily held the faded image carefully. It showed a group of men standing near the creek, all wearing old mining clothes. Their their boots covered in mud. Their expressions were grim, but it was something else that made her skin crawl. Behind the men, the creek looked different. Not still, not flat. The water behind them seemed to be bubbling, as if something below the surface was shifting. "What am I looking at?" Emily asked. Harold took a seat, his voice low. "That photo is from 1911, the first time they tried to block the creek." "Block it? Why?" "Because the miners believed something lived in it, something that had already taken 2 of their men. They thought if they dammed the creek, they could trap whatever was in it." "Did it work?" Harold shook his head. "They finished the dam on a Tuesday morning. By nightfall, it was gone, swept away. No flood, no storm, just gone. And one of the men who built it never came home." Emily stared at the photo, the pale water behind the men almost glowing. "Did anyone ever see what came out of it back then?" Harold hesitated. Then he pulled out another picture. This one was worse, much worse. The image was blurry, but it looked like a man crawling out of the water, his body distorted, bent at angles that should have broken bone. His face was wrong, stretched, hollow where the eyes should have been. Emily's knees weakened. "Is that one of the miners?" "No." Harold's voice cracked. "That was the miner who disappeared the night the dam fell apart. They found him a week later. Or rather, something that looked like him." Emily set the photo on the desk with shaking hands. The creature she saw last night looked like the thing in the picture. Not exactly, but close enough that her stomach twisted. "Why is it here? What does it want?" Harold looked at her with a sadness that aged him further. "It wants what it has always wanted. Faces, names. It takes them, learns them, becomes them. The creek never forgets anything that falls into it. It keeps memories like a grave, keeps bodies." Emily's breath caught. "Ben said it came to his window once. Why did it not take him?" "Because it does not always take. It watches first, learns, waits until it understands what someone fears most. Fear makes it stronger." Harold leaned forward. "The longer it remembers you, the closer it gets." Emily felt a coldness spreading slowly across her skin. "How do we stop it?" Harold hesitated, then opened the box again and pulled out the map. "This is from before the town was built. Look here." He pointed to a symbol drawn in dark ink along the creek's path. It looked like an eye with no pupil. This was the original warning left by the people who lived here long before us. They believed the creek was a wound in the earth, a place where things slip through from below. They marked it so future generations would avoid it. "We failed that warning," Emily said softly. Harold nodded. "And now it remembers all of us." Before Emily could speak again, a loud slam echoed through the town hall. Both she and Harold turned sharply. The front door was swinging open. Someone had rushed inside. Ben stumbled into the room, breathless, his hoodie damp with sweat. Emily rushed to him. "Ben, what happened?" The boy's voice cracked. "It was at our house. It was in the yard this morning. Mom saw it. It was standing in the bushes, watching the house. It looked like me, but wrong." Emily grabbed his shoulders. "Where is your mother now?" "Home. She locked herself inside. She told me to run here." Harold stood. "We need to get her." Emily nodded. She grabbed her bag and followed Harold and Ben outside. The sky had grown darker again, as if the sun had lost its strength. They hurried down the street, the cold air pressing against their lungs. As they approached Ben's house, Emily slowed. Something felt wrong. The front door was cracked open. The wind pushed it gently back and forth. Ben froze. "Mom never leaves the door open." Harold held out an arm to stop him. "Stay behind me." They stepped inside. The house was silent. Too silent. A mug lay shattered on the floor. A chair was overturned. Emily's heart pounded. Ben whispered, "Mom." From deeper in the house came a sound, soft, wet, like something dragging itself across the floor. Emily felt the world narrow. She looked toward the hallway. A figure was standing there. It was shaped like a woman. Same height, same hair, same clothes, but its arms hung too long, its neck tilted too far, and its eyes were empty. Ben gasped. "Mom." The creature turned toward him, its head tilting almost exactly the way Ben had tilted his the night before. It raised one hand and took a step forward. Harold grabbed Ben and pulled him back. "Run." Emily turned and sprinted with them out the door as the creature lurched forward, its footsteps heavy but certain. They ran into the street. Emily looked back once. The thing that looked like Ben's mother stood in the doorway, watching them flee. It did not chase. It only stared, as if memorizing every movement, every breath, every detail of their faces. Emily's lungs burned. Her mind raced. The creek had remembered her, and now it was remembering everyone else too. Emily Carter ran until her lungs burned. But even after she and Harold and Ben reached the far end of the street, she could still feel the creature's gaze pressing against her back. She did not turn around. She could not. The image of the imitation mother standing in the doorway was already burned into her mind. The stillness of it, the emptiness in its eyes, the way its arms hung too long, swaying slightly as if remembering the rhythm of a human it had once watched too closely. Ben stumbled and nearly fell. Harold caught him by the arm. "We need to get you somewhere safe." "Safe," Emily repeated breathlessly. Her voice cracked on the word. "There is no safe place in this town anymore." Harold looked around. The fog was thickening fast, rolling along the road as though pulled by some invisible tide. The sky had darkened even more, though it was not yet noon. Everything felt wrong, as if the day itself feared the thing that had crawled out of the creek. "We go to the church," Harold said. "Old stone walls, high windows. It is the only building in town that has survived every generation untouched." Emily grabbed Ben's hand, and the three hurried toward the small hill where the church sat. The bell tower rose above the rooftops like a finger pointing at a sky that no longer cared. The closer they got, the colder the air grew, until Emily could see her breath clouding out in front of her. Inside the church, the air felt dense. Dust particles drifted through beams of pale light. Wooden pews lined the aisle, worn smooth by generations of hands. Emily exhaled shakily. For a moment, she felt something like relief. Ben collapsed into a pew. Emily knelt in front of him. "Are you hurt?" He shook his head, though his eyes were wide with terror. "That thing looked like my mom. It had her hair, her clothes, but its face, He trailed off, unable to continue. Emily felt a chill deeper than the cold around them. It does not just copy what it sees, it studies, it learns. Harold closed the heavy door and slid the iron bolt into place. This church was built with stone brought from outside the region, he said quietly. The old families believed the land here was too close to whatever runs beneath the creek. They thought stone from elsewhere would hold better against it. Hold better, Emily repeated, but not stop it. Harold did not answer. Emily stood and paced the aisle. Her thoughts raced. The creature was no longer content to watch from the water's edge. It had started walking among them, learning their faces, entering their homes. That meant something had changed. Something had awakened it. She looked at Harold. Why now? Why is it coming out more than before? Harold sank into a pew as though the weight of decades had suddenly collapsed onto his shoulders. The old stories say the creek wakes fully only when it recognizes enough faces that once it remembers the entire town. It begins to claim it, one by one. Emily's stomach twisted. So it has been watching for years. Watching, Harold whispered, and waiting. A loud crack echoed through the church. Ben jumped. Emily spun toward the door. Did something hit it? She asked. Harold approached slowly. The fog outside pressed against the stained glass windows, distorting the colors. Another crack. Emily's breath caught. Harold touched the door with 2 fingers. Something is outside, he whispered. Emily grabbed Ben and backed away. The door shuddered a 3rd time. Harder. Dust drifted down from the rafters. Harold stepped back. Whatever it is, it cannot get through the stone walls or windows. It is testing the door, but Emily could feel it. The same pressure she felt in the motel room. A presence leaning in, listening, trying to remember the shape of those inside. Ben whispered, "Why does it want us?" Emily lowered herself beside him. Because it collects faces, voices, memories. It watches until it understands how to wear us. Ben trembled. "I want my mom." Emily's heart tightened painfully. She wished she had something else to say, but lies felt poisonous in this town. The banging stopped. Silence swallowed the church. Harold leaned forward to listen, but no sound came from outside. The fog no longer pressed against the windows. The air felt suddenly too still. Emily exhaled slowly. Maybe it left. Or, Harold said with a grim voice, maybe it is waiting for us to leave. Emily felt a cold presence behind her. She turned sharply. Nothing but the shadows in the back corner of the church looked deeper than before, almost like they were thickening into a shape. Harold followed her gaze. His eyes widened. "Do not move." Emily squinted at the darkness. It seemed to pull, as if breathing. Something shifted inside it. A curve, a line, the suggestion of a shoulder. Ben whispered, "Is that someone?" "No," Harold said. His voice shook. "It is what happens when you let it see you twice." Emily's blood ran cold. The creature had not needed to break into the church. It had found another way inside. Through memory, the shadow stretched, rising, forming a long, narrow silhouette with too much height and too little shape. It leaned forward slightly, as though listening to the sound of their breath. Emily grabbed Ben's hand. "Run," they sprinted down the aisle. The shadow figure glided behind them without footsteps, its form rippling like thick smoke. Emily reached the back door of the church and shoved it open. The three burst out into the cemetery. Tombstones rose in crooked lines, names worn away by time. Fog curled around the bases, slithering across the ground. Emily turned. The shadow figure slipped through the doorway behind them, its body bending unnaturally to fit through the frame. Harold pointed toward a stone crypt at the edge of the cemetery. Inside, now! They ran. Emily pushed Ben ahead of her, and Harold shoved the heavy stone door closed behind them. The crypt was cold, lit only by thin cracks of daylight. Dust covered everything. Emily leaned against the wall, gasping for breath. Harold spoke between breaths. The creature cannot mimic what it cannot see clearly. If we stay in the dark, it will struggle to shape us. It needs precision. Ben trembled. But it knows our faces already. Harold nodded grimly. Yes, but the longer we stay hidden, the harder it is for it to keep its memory sharp. Emily sank onto a stone bench. So we hide. Until what? Until it gets bored. No, Harold said. Until we find what the old families hid, the only thing that ever weakened it. Emily stared at him. You said nothing can stop it. Harold looked at the cracked stone floor. Not stop, but weaken, long enough to drive it back into the creek. Emily leaned forward. What is it? What did they hide? Harold took a slow breath. A name. Emily frowned. A name. Harold nodded. Its name, the one it abandoned long ago, the one it fears, because names hold power over the things that slip between worlds. Emily felt a chill deeper than any before. And where is this name? Harold looked toward the far wall of the crypt. Underneath us, the stone beneath their feet groaned. Something outside touched the crypt door. Emily froze. Harold's breath halted. The creature had found them again, and now it was remembering the sound of their fear. The crypt shuddered again as something heavy scraped along the outside stone. Emily pressed her back to the cold wall, gripping Ben's arm while Harold crouched near the cracked floor. The faint light leaking through the narrow openings in the ceiling seemed weaker than before, as if even the sun feared to look inside. The creature knew where they were. It had followed the shape of their voices, the echo of their fear, the memory it held from watching them too closely, and now it waited beyond the stone door. Patient as winter, Harold whispered, "We do not have much time." Emily knelt beside him. What exactly is under this floor? Harold brushed away dust, revealing faint carvings etched into the stone. Symbols, worn down by decades of damp air, formed a circular pattern. At the center was the outline of an eye without a pupil. The first families built this crypt as both a sanctuary and a seal, Harold said. They hid the creature's name beneath the stone, believing it was the only thing that could weaken it. Emily frowned. So if we find the name, we can use it. Harold shook his head. It is not that simple. The creature abandoned its name long ago. Speaking it forces it to remember what it once was. It breaks the shape it has stolen, but it will fight to keep that from happening. Ben looked toward the door, where a soft, dragging sound echoed again. His voice trembled. "How do we get to it?" Harold pressed his palm to the center symbol. The stone vibrated faintly, as if responding to his touch. With enough pressure, the slab shifted a fraction of an inch. Light from below flickered upward. Emily inhaled sharply. "There is a chamber under us." Harold nodded. "Long sealed. No one has opened it in more than 100 years. Ben backed away. "What if the thing comes inside while we are down there?" Emily placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then we make sure it cannot." She helped Harold push the slab aside with a grinding groan. Dust billowed up. Beneath the stone was a narrow opening leading into darkness. A metal ladder descended into the chamber below, its rungs rusted but solid. Harold went first. Emily followed. Then Ben. They climbed down into the dark until their feet touched cold ground. The chamber was larger than Emily expected. Torches mounted on the walls flickered to life as if sensing their presence, filling the room with a dim amber glow. Old stone shelves lined the walls, holding scrolls, wooden boxes, and relics too decayed to recognize. Emily turned slowly. "This is not just a hiding place. It is a vault." Harold nodded. The early families documented everything they knew about the creek. Every sighting, every disappearance, every attempt to contain it. Ben pointed toward the far corner. "What is that?" A pedestal rose from the floor, carved from the same stone as the walls. Upon it lay a flat slate tablet covered by a cloth woven with symbols similar to those on the crypt floor. Harold approached with reverence. "If I am right, this tablet holds what remains of its first name." Emily stepped closer. The cloth looked ancient, but the symbols on it pulsed faintly, as if alive. She reached toward it, but Harold raised a hand. "Careful! Once the name is spoken, the creature will come for whoever speaks it." Immediately, before Emily could respond, the chamber shook violently. Dust rained down. A deep thud echoed from above, followed by the unmistakable sound of stone cracking. Ben clutched Emily's arm. "It is breaking through." Harold pulled the cloth from the tablet in one swift motion. The slate was carved with a single symbol, a name not written in letters, but in shape. A shape their eyes could barely hold. It seemed to twist, shift, and reform every time Emily focused on it. It felt wrong to look at, like staring into a memory that was not hers. Emily whispered, "How do we say it?" Harold swallowed. "The name is not meant to be spoken as a human word. It is meant to be recalled. It forces the creature to remember what it once was." Above them, the crypt door groaned violently. Something heavy slammed against it, sending a booming echo through the ceiling. Ben gasped. "It is coming in." Harold turned to Emily. "You are the only one it has watched close enough to fear. If you speak this name, it will hear you." Emily stared at the tablet. Her heartbeat thundered in her chest. The symbol seemed to breathe, shrinking and expanding like a living thing. The chamber lights flickered. The ceiling cracked. Stone dust poured down. The creature was inside the crypt. Harold gripped her shoulder. "If you speak it, it will be weakened, but only for a short time. Then we must drive it it back to the creek before it regains strength. Emily lifted a shaking hand toward the tablet. The symbol twisted, the room darkened. A low whisper filled the air, not from the tablet, but from the walls, the floor, the ceiling. It was the creature's voice. Emily. Ben screamed as the ceiling above split open. A massive crack spread across the stone. Through it, a pale, elongated hand reached down into the chamber, fingers scraping the wall. Harold shouted, "Speak it now." Emily's throat tightened. She stared at the symbol. Her lips parted. The creature's whisper grew louder. "Emily, do not." She forced her voice forward, shaping the sound. The symbol pulled from her mind. It was not a word. It was something older, something jagged, something that should never be spoken by a human mouth. As the sound left her lips, the chamber exploded with light. A scream tore through the air. Not human, not animal. A scream that rattled the bones in her body. The hand jerking through the ceiling spasmed violently, twisting in unnatural angles. The stone cracked further. Ben covered his ears. "Make it stop." But Emily kept speaking. The name clawed through her throat like a physical force. The air shook. The torches flickered wildly. The creature bellowed, retreating from the ceiling. Its shadow writhed against the stone above them, like a living darkness being forced backward. Then all at once, the noise ceased. Silence dropped like a stone. Emily collapsed to her knees, gasping. Her throat burned. The symbol on the tablet now lay still, dim, lifeless. Harold knelt beside her. "You did it. It is weakened, but not gone. We must move quickly before it regains its shape." Ben trembled. "We have to return to the creek." Emily forced herself to stand. "Yeah, if we want to send it back. We have to take the name to the place it came from." The ceiling above them creaked. The creature was hurt, but not defeated. Emily looked at the tablet one last time. Then she whispered, "Let's end this." The chamber walls still trembled as Emily, Harold, and Ben climbed the rusted ladder back into the upper crypt. The air above felt colder than before, heavy with the lingering echo of the creature's scream. Emily struggled to steady her breathing. Speaking the creature's abandoned name had taken more out of her than she had expected. Her throat burned, her chest ached, and shadows seemed to flicker at the edges of her vision each time she blinked. But they did not have time to rest. Harold pushed the crypt door open with effort. The fog outside had thickened, rolling across the cemetery ground like something alive. The tombstones stood in crooked lines, half swallowed by the white haze. Emily stepped out, gripping the edge of the doorway as dizziness washed through her. Ben steadied her with a small hand. "Are you okay?" he whispered. Emily nodded weakly. "It will pass." But deep inside, she wasn't sure. The name still pulsed faintly in her mind, like a brand that refused to cool. Harold scanned the fog-covered cemetery. "The creature is weakened, but not for long. We must reach the creek before it regains its shape." Emily lifted her gaze. The church tower loomed above the mist, but the rest of Millersford looked drowned in pale gray. Buildings were only vague silhouettes. The wind had stopped entirely. Even the birds were silent. It felt like the entire world was holding its breath. She turned to Harold. "If we use its name at the creek, will it force it back into the water?" Harold hesitated. "It should, but the old writings say the creek must accept the name. It may resist. Ben swallowed hard. What if it does not accept it? Then, Harold said quietly, the creature does not return alone. That made Emily's skin crawl in a way the creature never had. She pictured the black still surface of the creek, a wound in the earth, a place where things slipped through. If the name was strong enough to wound the creature, then what exactly lurked beneath that water? A sharp crack echoed through the fog. Emily spun. A dark shape moved behind a row of tombstones. Ben stepped back. Is that it? Emily stared. The shape was human-sized, crouched low. Then it stood slowly, too slowly, a jerky motion that no living thing would make. When the figure stepped into a thin beam of light from the church window, Emily felt her heart seize. It was a man, or what used to be one. His face sagged slightly, like wet clay. His clothes hung wrong on his frame, loose in some places and stretched tight in others. Harold whispered, "One of the taken." Emily froze. "You mean it made that thing from someone the creek swallowed?" Harold nodded grimly. The creek does not just devour, it repurposes. The figure turned toward them. Its jaw moved slowly, working up and down as if trying to remember how to speak. Emily took a step back. "We need to go. Now!" They ran through the fog-covered cemetery. Emily felt the creature's minion following, its footsteps dragging heavily behind them. It did not run, but it did not need to. It followed relentlessly, as though tethered to them by the sound of their heartbeat. When they reached the main road, the fog parted slightly. The town lay in eerie silence. Doors were shut, windows closed, but Emily saw movement inside the houses, shadowy figures standing too still. "Watching," Ben whispered. "Are those more of them?" Emily swallowed. "Or people too scared to come out? We cannot know." Harold pointed forward. "The creek is less than a mile. Stay close." They hurried down the road. As they passed the diner, Emily saw the neon sign flicker. The reflection in the window did not match her movement. Instead of turning forward as she did, the reflection lingered for a half second. Staring back, she grabbed Harold's arm. "Did you see that?" He didn't look. "Do not pay attention to anything that looks too long at you." The fog thickened again as they approached the edge of the forest. The trees rose like dark pillars, their branches bending inward as if trying to block their path. Ben hesitated. "It feels different here." Emily nodded. "The forest is reacting to the name." A deep sound echoed through the trees, not quite a roar, not quite a moan, something in between, something that shook the ground beneath their feet. Emily felt it vibrate in her chest. The creature was awakening again. Harold urged them forward. "Hurry!" While it is still weak, they stepped into the forest. The path they had taken earlier was barely visible beneath the thick fog. Emily recognized the twisted roots, the leaning trees, the patches of damp soil, but everything looked darker now, as if the forest itself had grown frightened. Halfway down the path, Ben gasped. "Look!" Emily raised her eyes. Hanging from a low branch was something pale, a sheet of skin, thin as parchment, stretched and drying in the cold air. She choked back bile. Harold grabbed her arm. "Do not stop. It leaves pieces of itself behind when it changes shape." Emily pushed forward, forcing her mind away from the grotesque image. The fog thinned slightly, and she saw it. The creek, black, silent, perfectly still. The sight froze her in place. The surface reflected nothing. Not trees, not sky, not them. It was as if the water refused to acknowledge the world above it. Ben clung to her side. It is waiting. Harold stepped closer to the bank, his face tightened. It knows we are here. Emily swallowed hard. She pulled the slate tablet from her bag. The symbol carved into it pulsed faintly, responding to the presence of the creek. The water rippled. For the first time since she had seen it, the black surface shivered, as if taking a slow breath. Emily felt something brush against her mind. A whisper, cold, patient. Emily. Her breath hitched. She stared at the tablet. The name carved into the stone twisted as she looked at it, trying to re-hide itself. Harold spoke urgently. You must speak it again. Only you. Emily stepped to the edge. The fog parted around her. The creek seemed to lean upward, rising slightly to meet her. Ben squeezed her hand. Please come back. Emily nodded. I will. She held the tablet in both hands. The symbol pulsed faster, reacting to the water. The surface of the creek split open. A tall figure rose from the depths, pale, hollow-eyed, its limbs twisted, its mouth stretched impossibly wide as it pulled itself toward her. It was the creature, but smaller somehow, less stable, its form shaking like wet cloth. Emily raised the tablet. The creature's voice, stronger this time. Do not. She began to speak. The name tore through the air like broken glass. The forest bent. The fog twisted. The creek roared, a sound like 100 voices screaming underwater. The creature convulsed, its form collapsing inward, its limbs folded, its mouth stretched in silent agony. The black water beneath it churned violently, pulling at its body. Harold shouted, "Keep going." Emily forced the rest of the name out. The final syllable rang through the trees like a bell. The creek exploded upward, swallowing the creature whole. Tendrils of black water whipped across the air, latching onto its body and dragging it under with terrifying force. Then everything went still. The water turned flat, silent, empty. Emily fell to her knees, the tablet hitting the ground beside her. Ben rushed to her and wrapped his arms around her. Harold stood frozen, staring at the creek with wide eyes. Emily looked at the still water. It was over until the surface rippled once more, and a hand pressed against the underside, pushing up, not the creatures, smaller, human, and then another, and another. Dozens, as if the creek had decided to return everything it had ever taken. Emily stared in horror as dozens of human hands pushed against the black surface of the creek. The water rippled outward in slow, unnatural waves, each pulse sending a cold vibration through the air. Ben clung to her side, trembling, while Harold stood frozen a few steps away, his face drained of all color. The hands were small and large, men's and women's, young and old. Some bore rings, some bore scars, some were pale as bone, others tinted gray from years beneath the water, but all of them reached upward, pressing against the impossibly thin membrane between the world above and the darkness below. Emily whispered, "What is it doing?" Harold swallowed hard. The creek is returning what it has kept, or showing us what is left of them. A low sound rose from the water, not a scream, not a groan, something deeper, something hollow, as if the creek itself had lungs filled with mud and memory. The surface stretched like skin pulled too tight, bulging outward with each movement of the trapped hands. Ben whimpered, "Are they alive?" Emily shook her head, though the truth twisted painfully inside her. "I do not know." Harold took a step closer. The name weakened it. "It is trying to anchor itself by calling on the remnants of the ones it consumed." Emily stared. "That means it is not done." The central bulge in the water convulsed. A shape rose beneath it, something tall, something familiar. As it neared the surface, the water spiraled upward in thin tendrils, as if helping form its outline. Emily exhaled shakily. "It is rebuilding itself." The figure rose higher until its head nearly breached the surface. Hollow sockets stared upward, empty and searching. Its mouth spread slowly into a jagged grin, broken teeth pushing through the water. The creature had returned, but it was not the same. Its form flickered, unstable, as if the name Emily had spoken still clung to its shape like a burning brand. Harold said urgently, "Emily, it is still weak. Speak the name again." Emily reached for the tablet. It pulsed faintly, responding to the creature's presence. But as she lifted it, something tugged at her mind. A whisper, softer this time, almost pleading. "Emily." She froze. That voice was different. Not the creature's voice. This voice was warmer, human. Emily blinked hard. "Mom." Ben looked up at her sharply. "Did you hear that?" Emily stepped back. The voice echoed again inside her skull, rippling like a memory pulled from deep water. "Emily, please, help me." Her heart hammered. The creature was using her mother's voice, a voice she had not heard in years, a voice she had buried beneath layers of grief and silence. Harold grabbed her arm. "Do not listen. It is not her. It mimics what hurts most." But the voice pleaded again, twisting her thoughts. "Help me. I am still here." Emily staggered. The forest seemed to tilt around her. Ben grabbed her hand desperately. "Emily, do not look at it." But her gaze drifted toward the water. The bulge split open. A face pushed through. Her mother's face, or something that wore it like a mask, stretched too thin. The eyes were wrong, too wide, too reflective. The mouth trembled in an uncanny imitation of life. Emily's chest constricted. "No!" Harold shouted. "Look away." But she could not. The face smiled slowly. "It has been waiting to see you again." Emily felt her mind splitting like thin glass. Tears burned her eyes. Her mother had drowned when Emily was 13. The body had never been found. The memory had never healed. The creature had found her deepest wound and pressed its fingers into it. Harold stepped between Emily and the water. "This is what it does. It takes what we cannot let go." The face in the water twisted into something monstrous. Its jaw stretched sideways, tearing at the corners. Its skin bubbled and darkened, sinking back into the creature's true form. The hands beneath the water clawed violently, sending ripples across the surface. Ben screamed, "Emily, speak the name." Emily's shaking hands clutched the tablet. The symbol writhed, resisting her focus. Her mother's voice continued echoing, but it was unraveling, dissolving into static and whispers. Emily closed her eyes. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "That is not you. You are gone. You have been gone for a long time." The voice stopped. Emily inhaled sharply, lifted the tablet, and shouted the name again. The sound tore through the forest. The air warped. The fog spiraled upward. The creek convulsed violently, the water twisting into a vortex. The creature screamed. Its body shook, folding in on itself. Its limbs stretched too far, snapping back like broken ropes. The hands beneath the surface withdrew violently, as if pulled by invisible chains. Harold shouted again. Emily screamed the name a second time. Louder, stronger. The vortex expanded, pulling branches, stones, even pieces of the bank into its swirling mass. The creature clawed at the surface, trying to hold itself above the water. Its hollow eyes locked onto Emily, full of hate and rage. Then she spoke the name a third time. The creek exploded downward. Water collapsed inward, dragging the creature with it. The vortex spiraled deeper, as if the earth itself were trying to seal the wound. The creature's scream grew faint, then distant, then silenced entirely beneath the crushing weight of water and darkness. The creek snapped shut, perfectly still. Emily fell to her knees, chest heaving, tears streaming down her face. Ben hugged her tightly, shaking. Harold stared at the water, stunned. The surface rippled once, then again. Emily's heart seized. The water bulged, but this time, no hands pushed through. Instead, something small floated up, a wooden locket. Emily recognized it instantly. Her mother's. Harold knelt beside her. "It is not a trick. The creek returns what it does not need." Emily picked up the locket with trembling hands. It was cold, but real. Ben whispered, "Does this mean it is over?" The creek fell completely silent. Emily closed her hand around the locket. No, not yet, because the forest behind them had grown darker, and something was moving between the trees. Something bigger than the creature they had faced. Something the creek had not created, but something the creek had awakened. Emily tightened her grip on the wooden locket as the forest behind them shifted with slow, heavy motion. The air thickened with a tension she had not felt even when facing the creature from the creek. This presence was different. Older, intentional. The fog at the tree line pulled backward, as if something enormous were inhaling. Ben whispered, "Emily, what is that?" Harold did not answer. His eyes were fixed on the darkened forest, jaw clenched, breathing shallow. Whatever moved in those trees was not shaped like a man. Its silhouette swayed between the trunks, massive and silent. The forest seemed to bend around it, branches bowing as though in submission. Emily swallowed, the panic rising in her throat. The creature from the creek had been horrifying, but it had a predictable, unnatural rhythm. This new presence moved like something alive, something with purpose. Harold finally spoke, voice low. "I prayed this was only legend, something the old families wrote down to frighten their children. But the creek is a doorway, and doorways open both ways." Emily stepped back. "Are you saying something else crossed over?" Harold nodded once. "The creature we fought was born of the creek, but this..." This is something the creek answered to. A tree cracked violently in the distance. Birds that had remained silent until now burst upward in a frantic cloud, fleeing the forest. Emily felt the vibration in her bones. "We have to move," Ben said, voice shaking. Emily agreed, but her legs would not obey. The creek behind them remained perfectly still. The forest in front of them lived and breathed with something ancient. She felt caught between two nightmares. The presence grew closer. Emily forced her breathing steady. "Harold, what does it want?" Harold hesitated. "The creature you weakened was never the master of the creek. It was a guardian, a collector. But above all, it was a warning. A warning of what? Of the thing it served." The shadow in the trees finally stepped forward. The fog parted around it, as though repelled by its mass. Emily saw the outline first. Tall, too tall, shoulders broad enough to block the pale daylight. Its arms hung nearly to its knees, swaying gently like heavy ropes. Its head was elongated, but not deformed in the same way as the smaller creature. This head held shape. Intent, a crown of twisted branches spread from its skull as though grown from living bone. Ben whimpered, pressing against Emily. The creature stepped fully into view. Its skin resembled wet bark woven with tendons. Patches of moss clung to its limbs. Its chest rose and fell in slow, deliberate breaths. Where a face should have been, there were only deep impressions in the shape of features, like the memory of a face carved into wood. Emily whispered, "What is it?" Harold's voice trembled. "The first families called it the Rememberer, the one that holds every life the creek has ever taken, the one that waits until the creek is wounded enough to wake." Emily's heart hammered painfully. If speaking the name weakened the smaller creature, what did it do to this one? Harold took a step backward. "The name you spoke was never meant for this one. It does not weaken it, it summons it." The entity lifted its head. The forest grew silent, as if every living thing paused to witness it. The Rememberer extended one long arm toward them. Emily's breath caught as the air thickened around her chest. She felt pulled, not physically, but by something deeper, a pressure inside her mind. It reached for her memories. Emily staggered, clutching her head as images poured through her vision. Her mother's voice, her father's face, the sound of her own scream when the creek creature first rose from the water. The locket in her hand vibrated warmly. Harold grabbed her shoulder. "Fight it. If it takes your memories, it will know everything you fear." Emily forced herself to breathe, but the Rememberer's pull intensified. Ben screamed behind her as he fell to his knees, hands pressed to his temples. Emily dropped beside him, shielding him with her arms. "Stop!" she shouted. The Rememberer tilted its head. The deep impressions where its eyes should have been widened slightly, like a curious child observing something fragile. Harold stepped forward, raising both hands. "You cannot take them. They belong to the living." The Rememberer lowered its head, as if acknowledging the attempt. Then, With a slow swipe of its arm, it sent a gust of wind tearing through the clearing. The force flung Harold backward, striking the ground with a hard thud. Emily gasped. "Harold," he groaned, but did not rise. The rememberer took another step closer. The ground trembled under its weight. Emily clutched the locket against her chest. Her mother's locket. Suddenly warmth spread through her palm. The locket glowed faintly, a soft golden hue piercing the thick fog. Emily opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a faded picture, her mother smiling as the rememberer advanced. The warmth grew stronger, pushing back the pull on her memories. Emily lifted the locket in front of her. "Stop," she said again, louder this time. "You cannot take what is not yours." The rememberer froze. Its hollow impressions narrowed. Then it lowered its head as if listening. Harold struggled to his feet. "Emily." The locket, the old writing spoke of memory anchors, objects tied to the living by love, stronger than fear. Emily stared at the photograph. The warmth pulsed in gentle waves. Ben whispered, "It is afraid of it." Emily felt strength return to her voice. "You cannot take my memories. They belong to the people who gave them to me. They belong to me." The rememberer recoiled slightly. Its massive frame creaked like old wood twisting in a storm. It spoke without sound, words forming inside Emily's mind. "Return what was taken." Emily shook her head. "I cannot." "But you can." The rememberer extended one massive hand toward the creek. The surface rippled, glowing faintly. Harold stepped closer. "Emily, I think it wants you to command it. You summoned it with the name. Now it recognizes you." Emily felt cold dread and a strange responsibility. "What do I tell it to do?" Harold stared at the ground. "Maybe to return what it has stolen." Emily lifted the glowing locket. Her voice shook. "Release them." The rememberer lifted its head. The ground rumbled. The creek surface brightened, shimmering like molten silver. Emily stepped forward, compelled by something she could not explain. The rememberer mirrored her movement. Emily spoke again, stronger. "Return the lives you took." The creek erupted with light. Human forms began rising from beneath the surface. Not twisted, not monstrous. Whole, dozens of them. Men, women, children. Their faces peaceful, silent, moving upward like sleeping figures carried by a gentle current. Ben gasped. Harold fell to his knees. Emily's heart broke and mended at once. She recognized none of them, yet she felt the weight of all of them. The rememberer bowed its head. Emily approached the water, but before her foot touched the bank, the light vanished. Every form dissolved. The surface slammed shut. Emily staggered backward. "No, no!" Harold grabbed her arm. "Emily," it tried, but they were already gone long before the creek took them. Emily's voice cracked. "Then what did we see?" Harold whispered. "Their memories, not their bodies." Emily sank to her knees, clutching the locket. The rememberer stepped back, returning to the forest. Its job completed, its purpose fulfilled. Or paused. Ben whispered, "Is it gone?" Emily shook her head slowly. The rememberer melted into the shadows between the trees, but not before sending her one final message. "It is not finished. The creek has one memory left to return. Yours. The forest settled into a dreadful silence after the rememberer vanished between the trees. Emily stood trembling at the edge of the creek, the wooden locket clenched tightly in her fist. Ben leaned against her side, still shaking, while Harold steadied himself with one hand on a nearby branch, breathing hard. The silence did not bring comfort. It pressed down on them like a weight, waiting for the next moment to break. Emily's voice cracked as she whispered, "What does it mean?" The creek has one memory left to return. Harold wiped sweat and dirt from his brow. His expression was grim. "I believe it means the creek is not finished with you. It has touched your mind now. It has your voice, your fear. It might even hold pieces of your past." Emily's stomach clenched with icy dread. The locket warmed in her palm again, as if reacting to her growing fear. She opened it slowly and stared at her mother's faded photograph. Her throat tightened. Ben glanced up at her. "Emily, what if the creek is trying to take you too?" Emily didn't answer. She couldn't. The image of her mother's face forming in the creature's twisted shape haunted her. The creek had reached into her memories once, and it could do it again. Harold looked at the trees. "We need to leave. The rememberer may not return soon, but the forest is changing. The creek is changing, and if it's trying to take Emily, then it's preparing something." Emily let out a shaky breath. "Preparing what?" Harold shook his head. "I don't know, but nothing the creek releases is harmless." They began moving away from the water, but after only a few steps, the fog thickened again, curling around their legs like pale fingers. Emily's heartbeat quickened. The fog had moved before, but never this fast. Harold frowned. "It is redirecting us." Emily stiffened. "The creek is trying to keep me close." Ben squeezed her hand. "We will not let it." But as they took another step, Emily felt something cold brush across her mind. A whisper, faint as a breath in winter. "Emily." She jerked, clutching her head. "Not again." The whisper continued, sliding deeper into her thoughts. "Come back." Emily stumbled backward. "No, you are not her. You are not anything." The fog pulsed around her in rhythm with the whisper. Harold grabbed her shoulder. "Fight it." Emily squeezed her eyes shut and pushed the whisper away. But when she opened them again, the forest had changed. The trees were closer, the trunks thicker, the branches lower. Ben gasped. The forest moved. Emily spun around. The path they had used was gone, swallowed by thick, tangled roots that hadn't been there a moment ago. The forest was closing around them. Harold muttered, "The creek does not want you to leave, not without giving back what it took." Emily stared at the locket, trembling. What did it take from me? But before Harold could answer, a deep groan echoed through the forest. The roots beneath their feet shifted. Something massive was moving underground. Ben clutched her side. "Emily, something is coming." The earth split open behind them. Roots snapped apart. Soil erupted upward. Emily pulled Ben and Harold forward as a massive shape forced its way out of the ground. At first, it looked like a mound of soil rising from the earth, but then it grew taller, stretching into a twisted form that resembled a human silhouette, only larger, heavier. Its limbs formed of roots and wet earth. Mud dripped from its arms like blood. Harold's eyes widened in horror. The creek is not only awakening memory, it is awakening what has died near it. Emily's breath hitched. A corpse. Not just a corpse. Something buried long ago. The creature took a staggering step forward. Half human, half root. Its head was nothing but a mass of mud, shaped into a rough face with empty holes for eyes. Yet those holes found Emily instantly. Ben screamed, "Run!" They ran deeper into the forest. The fog shifted, parting only in the direction the creek wanted them to go. Emily realized with growing terror that no matter where they ran, they would eventually end up circling back to the water. Branches whipped their faces, roots clawed at their feet. The earth-born creature thundered behind them, its heavy steps shaking soil loose from the trees. Emily gripped the locket tighter as she ran. The warmth pulsed again, stronger. Harold shouted, "Emily, use it. Try something." Emily skidded to a stop. "No, if it wants me, then I won't run." Ben cried out, "Emily!" She turned toward the creature. Her legs trembled, her breath shallow, but she held the locket up high. The soft golden glow intensified, breaking through the fog. The creature staggered. Its muddy form trembled. Emily stepped forward, voice stronger. "You are not real. You are something the creek forced from the earth. You do not get to take anything from me." A low groan rumbled from the creature's hollow face. It lifted one massive arm, roots snapping from its shoulder. Emily stepped closer. Harold shouted her name. Ben screamed, but Emily's voice cut through everything. "Return what you took." The locket flared with blinding light. The creature froze mid-step. Its form melted, the mud loosening into streams that fell to the ground like dark water. Root limbs curled inward. The empty eye holes collapsed. Then the entire figure crumbled into a pile of earth. Ben rushed to Emily. "You did it! You stopped it!" But Emily did not answer. She stared at the pile of earth, trembling violently. Harold frowned. "Emily, what's wrong?" Emily pointed a shaking finger at the remnants of the creature. Something glinted within the dirt. She knelt slowly, pushing soil aside until her fingers closed around something hard. She lifted it, hands shaking, revealing a small metal object, a necklace, a child's necklace. Her breath caught. She recognized it instantly. She had lost it when she was 10 years old, during a trip with her parents. She remembered crying for hours because she thought it had fallen into the creek near their cabin. But the truth was far more horrible. Harold knelt beside her. "The creek took this from you long ago. It has been holding your memories since childhood." Emily stared at her trembling hands. "If it took this, what else did it take?" Ben whispered, "Fear." Harold whispered, "More than fear." Emily rose slowly. The fog swirled around her, but this time she did not tremble. She finally understood. The creek had been feeding on her for years. That was why it remembered her so easily, why it imitated her mother so perfectly, why the rememberer bowed. The creek had chosen her long before she arrived. Emily closed both hands around the necklace and the locket. "Harold." "Ben," she said softly, her voice steady despite the terror in her chest. "I have to go back to the creek." Harold's eyes widened. hand. No, that's exactly what it wants. Emily looked toward the black water shimmering through the fog. I know, and that's why I have to go. The fog parted as Emily stepped toward the creek, as though the forest itself bowed to her decision. Harold grabbed her arm in a last desperate attempt to pull her back, but she shook her head. There was no fear in her expression now, only a terrible certainty. Ben clung to Harold's sleeve, eyes wide with panic. Emily, please, you do not have to go back. We can find another way. Emily closed her fingers around the necklace and the locket. Both objects pulsed with a warmth that contrasted violently with the icy air. The creek had stolen parts of her past, and now it demanded the rest. She had spent her life believing her memories belonged to her. Only now did she understand how many pieces of her childhood had been shaped by the water she had never fully remembered. I have to know what it took, she whispered, and I have to take it back. Harold's voice shook. The creek is ancient. It does not return anything without a cost. Emily looked him directly in the eyes. Then I will pay it. The ground trembled beneath them, as if acknowledging her decision. The fog thickened, swirling in spirals around the trees. The air smelled of wet earth and something older, something metallic and deep, like blood buried under centuries of soil. Emily stepped forward. The forest shifted, trees tilted away, carving a path straight toward the water. Ben covered his ears as whispers rose with the fog, hundreds of them, layered over one another. Voices of the lost, voices of the taken, voices echoing from beneath the creek. Harold shouted over the whispers, "Emily, the creek does not want you to remember. It wants you to become part of what it remembers." Emily didn't slow. "That is why I am going to take back what it stole." The surface of the creek shimmered as she approached, no longer black and still but vibrant and alive. Waves shimmered outward in concentric circles. The water reflected no trees, no sky, no light, only Emily's face. Not the face she wore now, but the face of her younger self, a child of 10, a child holding a smile that once belonged to a simpler world. Ben whispered, "It is showing you your past." Emily gazed at the reflection. She remembered standing near water once. A cabin, a pier, her parents calling her back to shore. Then a sudden slip, cold hands, something pulling. Harold placed a hand on Ben's shoulder to keep him behind him. "Emily, do not touch the water." But the water moved first. A ripple formed at the center of the creek, widening like an opening eye. The surface bulged upward, stretching thin like a membrane. The shape of a hand pressed against it from beneath. Emily froze. Another hand, smaller, childlike. Then, slowly, a face appeared beneath the surface. A girl's face, her own. Emily stumbled backward. "That is me." "But that cannot be," Harold shouted. "It is showing you the moment it took something from you." The younger Emily's face rose closer to the surface. Her eyes were wide, frightened. Her mouth moved as if calling for help. The water trembled as the memory fought to break through. Emily felt her breath thinning. I do not remember this." "That is the point," Harold said. "The creek took it from you before you could understand it." The reflection reached the surface. The memory image opened its mouth wide and released a scream. a scream that somehow made no sound at all, but shook the ground beneath their feet. The water exploded upward. Emily was thrown backward, crashing onto the muddy bank. Ben and Harold scrambled to her side as the water rose like a pillar, twisting into the shape of a human figure, before collapsing into a wave that flooded the clearing. When the water settled, something stood where the wave had broken. It was the creature, but not the one they had fought. This version was smaller, hunched, trembling violently. Its limbs were crooked, its form incomplete. It was the creature as it had been the day it first touched Emily when she was a child. Harold cursed under his breath. Emily, that thing remembers you from long before you ever returned to Millersford. The creature took a stumbling step toward her. Its mouth hung open as if trying to speak. Air whistled through its broken teeth. Then it whispered, not with its throat, but inside her mind. Emily. The voice was the same voice she had heard when the creature mimicked her mother. Only now, there was no attempt at trickery. The voice trembled with recognition, with hunger. Ben screamed, "Emily, run!" But Emily stood. She raised the necklace and locket both, the warm glow trembling in her palms. The creature recoiled subtly, not from fear, but from memory. The object stirred something ancient inside it. Emily's voice cracked. "You took something from me, and I want it back." The creature's body convulsed. Its shape warped violently, flickering like a faulty reflection. The creek rippled behind it. Harold whispered, "Emily, it might try to give it back." Emily stepped closer. "Then give it." The creature lunged. Harold and Ben shouted, but Emily didn't move. The creature stopped inches from her face, trembling violently. It lifted one long, shaking arm, placing its crude hand against her forehead. A flood of images slammed into Emily's mind. A cabin door open, her mother screaming her name, cold water pulling her under, something brushing her ankle, something wrapping around her wrist, something whispering to her as she sank beneath the surface. Emily staggered backward. Gasping, Ben reached out to steady her. "Emily, what did you see?" Emily's eyes filled with tears. It tried to drown me." Harold froze. "At 10 years old, the creek marked you. It chose you. You were supposed to be the next one taken." Emily shook her head violently. "My parents pulled me out. They saved me." Harold's expression darkened. "No, something else saved you. If the creek had wanted you to die, you would have never been found." Emily shuddered. "Then why did it let me go?" Harold stared at the creature. "The creek does not kill those it wants to remember. It keeps them alive, so it can feed on their fear for years." The creature convulsed and collapsed, its body disintegrating into the water like melting wax. The creek swallowed the remains, then fell eerily still. Ben whispered, "Is it over?" Emily looked at the water. "No," because the reflection in the creek was not hers anymore. A shadow stood behind her reflection, tall, broad, crowned with branches. The rememberer. It had returned. The ground trembled as the forest darkened again. The air thickened with weight, memory, and dread. Harold whispered, "Emily, you awakened it. Your memories were the final key." Emily stepped backward as the rememberer rose from the tree line, its form larger than before, its movements faster, more purposeful. It leaned toward her, and It spoke not inside her mind, but aloud, in a deep rumbling voice that shook the ground. "Return yourself." Emily froze. Ben screamed her name. Harold reached for her, but the rememberer lifted both massive arms, and the fog spiraled into a vortex that surrounded Emily. She screamed as the world twisted around her, and the creek opened beneath her feet. She fell straight into the memory it had kept hidden for 19 years. Emily did not feel her body hit the water. She did not feel the cold or the pull of gravity. Instead, she fell through something softer than liquid and heavier than air, a membrane between worlds that rippled with every heartbeat. The scream that tore from her throat dissolved into silence before she heard it. Darkness pressed against her eyes, but not the darkness of night. This darkness breathed. Then she hit ground hard. Emily gasped and rolled onto her back. Her lungs burned as if they had swallowed smoke. Above her stretched a sky that could not belong to any world she knew. It glowed faintly, not with sunlight, but with the pale shimmer of memory. Colorless shapes flashed across it, like reflections on broken glass. She pushed herself upright. The ground beneath her was not soil, but smooth black stone, cold and polished like obsidian. She stared at the sky again. Each flicker was a scene, a memory. Her mother's hands lifting her from the water, her father laughing as she held up her first fishing rod, the cabin porch glowing in late afternoon sunlight. But the memories shattered before they fully appeared, dissolving into dust that swept away like smoke. Emily whispered, "Where am I?" A voice answered behind her, "Where you have always been." Emily spun around and froze. A younger version of herself stood only a few feet away. 10 years old, hair dripping with creek water, skin pale with cold, eyes wide with terror. Emily's heart stopped. "No, this is not real." Younger Emily stepped closer. Her voice was small, trembling. "I have been waiting for you." Emily stumbled backward. "You are not me." The child tilted her head. "Not anymore." Emily felt the truth in those words. This was not her. This was what the creek had kept, the part of her stolen long ago. A memory made flesh, a piece of her that had never grown up. Beneath them, the black stone cracked. Long fissures split open, glowing with pale blue light. A distant rumble echoed across the empty horizon. Emily turned in a circle. There was no forest, no town, no creek, only endless stone and memories flickering across the sky like dying stars. She looked back at the younger version of herself. "What does this place want from me?" The child reached out a hand to finish what began. Emily stepped back, shaking. "No." A deeper voice echoed across the vast emptiness. "Return." Emily froze. The ground shook, dust rising in small spirals around her feet. The sky rippled like disturbed water. The rememberer's silhouette rose from the horizon, stretching taller than she had ever seen. Its massive form moved with agonizing slowness, as though pushing through the walls of memory itself. Emily whispered, "This is its realm," and she was trapped inside it. The child version of her stepped closer, voice soft. The creek chose you, it needed you, and you left before it was finished. Emily shook her head again. I didn't choose any of this. The child's eyes darkened. You did. The day you fell into the creek, you listened to its voice. Emily's breath caught. She suddenly remembered a whisper she had never understood. A voice beneath the water when she was 10 years old. A voice that told her to stay. A voice promising she would never be alone again. She clutched the locket and necklace tightly. No, I didn't choose you. You took me. The child frowned. You were meant to stay, but your parents pulled you away, and the creek was forced to let you go. The ground trembled again as the rememberer approached, each of its footsteps cracking the stone, tearing open fissures that pulsed like veins. Ben's distant voice echoed through the sky, muffled and fading. Emily, Emily, Emily shouted upward. Ben, Harold, can you hear me? But the sky swallowed their voices. The child stepped closer, her expression blank. You cannot leave, not without returning what was taken. Emily stiffened. What was taken? The child reached out and touched Emily's chest. Emily gasped as a surge of cold shot through her ribs. Images burst behind her eyes. Her father holding her the day after she was pulled from the creek. Her mother whispering, "You scared us. You were not breathing." A doctor saying, "She will forget. Trauma at that age never holds." Emily screamed as another memory tore free. Something standing over her hospital bed that night. A shadow the nurses could not see. A figure watching her sleep. The creek's echo. Her childhood had been haunted long before she realized it. Emily shouted, "Get out of my head." The child vanished. Emily collapsed to her knees, breathing hard. Then the ground split open beneath her. Cold blue light surged upward, engulfing her legs. She scrambled backward, but the stone cracked again, widening into a chasm that glowed like a living wound. From within the chasm rose hands, hundreds of them reaching, grasping, pulling. The voices returned. "Emily, Emily, Emily," she screamed, trying to break free, but the hands clamped around her legs, her arms, her waist. They were not cruel, they were desperate. "Remember us," Emily roared. "I do not belong here." A massive shadow fell over her. The Rememberer towered above the chasm, its branch crown scraping the fractured sky. It lowered one enormous hand toward her, its hollow expression unreadable. Emily shouted, "Let me go." The Rememberer's voice rolled across the realm like thunder. "Return yourself." Emily glared at it. "You cannot take me. I am not yours." The Rememberer extended its hand farther, its fingers curling like roots. The ground split again. The sky flickered violently. Emily felt her memories tearing at the edges. Every happy moment with her parents, every warm laugh, every piece of her identity pulled toward the chasm like loose threads. She screamed and clutched the locket and necklace against her chest. A golden light burst outward, brighter than anything in the memory realm. The hands recoiled. The chasm slammed shut. The Rememberer staggered, its massive frame trembling. Emily rose slowly, the golden glow spreading across her body like armor. "These memories are mine," she said through clenched teeth. "You do not get to keep them anymore." The Rememberer lowered its head, not in surrender but in recognition. Then the entire realm shook violently as a massive crack tore through the sky. A blinding beam of white light shot downward. Emily felt her feet lift off the ground. The world twisted, the memories shattered like glass. The rememberer roared, reaching for her, but it was too late. The white light swallowed her, and Emily was ripped out of the memory realm. Emily burst through the white light as if breaking the surface of a frozen lake. She hit solid ground with a gasp, her lungs filling with cold air that burned like fire. She rolled onto her back, coughing, struggling to separate reality from the fragments of the memory realm still echoing behind her eyes. The world around her spun, then steadied. She forced herself upright. She was back in the forest. Fog curled between the trees. The smell of damp soil and rotting leaves grounded her in a way the memory realm never could. Her heartbeat slowed. Her hands trembled. She whispered through ragged breaths, "I made it. I am back." But something felt wrong. The forest was darker than before, the air colder, the trees bent inward as though trying to close around her. The creek no longer flowed beside her. Instead, a faint glow pulsed through the fog ahead, rhythmic like a heartbeat. Emily rose to her feet and clutched the necklace and the locket to her chest. Both objects still held a faint warmth, though weaker than before. "Ben," she called. "Harold." Her voice echoed through the forest, but there was no reply. Panic clawed its way up her throat. She called their names again, louder, more desperate. Only silence answered. Emily stumbled forward, weaving between thick roots and low branches until she broke through a curtain of fog. The creek appeared before her, black and unmoving. The air above it shimmered faintly as though struggling to hold its shape. Emily stepped closer, her breath sharp in her chest. The surface of the water was broken. A tear had formed near the center, a thin vertical slit in the water itself, glowing with the same pale light that had swallowed her. She reached the bank and peered in. This was no natural reflection, no ripple. The water was split open, like a wound that refused to heal. A faint cry echoed through the tear. Emily flinched. "Ben!" She leaned closer until her fingers nearly brushed the cold surface. The tear widened at her presence, opening like an eye. Light spilled out, illuminating the trees behind her in long, warped shadows. For a moment, she saw nothing but brightness. Then Ben's voice called from the depths, "Emily, help!" Emily lunged forward. "Ben, where are you?" But another voice answered, deeper, resonant, layered with centuries of memory. "Return what is ours." Emily froze. The rememberer. The memory realm had not trapped her by accident. It had wanted her to see its world, its power, its hunger, and now it wanted her still. The tear in the creek pulsed in time with its voice, widening further as the forest groaned around her. Emily stepped back. "I am not going back." The voice rumbled through her bones. "You never left." As the slit widened, shapes emerged inside the glow. Ben curled on the ground, holding his head. Harold standing protectively over him, shouting words she couldn't hear. The two of them flickered like candlelight in wind, images unstable, shifting, dissolving. The creek was pulling them into the memory realm. Emily screamed. No, let them go, the rememberer answered. Return yourself. Emily stared at the shimmering tear, her heart pounding. The memory realm wanted her. The rememberer wanted her. The creek wanted what it had almost claimed 19 years ago. It wanted the child it had marked. But Emily was no longer a child. She straightened, clutching both the necklace and the locket. Her voice shook with rage and resolve. I am not yours. I will never be yours. The tear convulsed violently. The water around it spiraled. The forest trembled. A roar like shifting stone echoed through the trees. The rememberer's silhouette appeared within the tear, its towering form distorted by shifting memories. It stepped closer, pressing its massive hand against the inside of the slit like a prisoner testing a weak barrier. Emily felt her knees go weak. The air thickened with pressure. Her ears rang. The rememberer spoke again, but the voice came from everywhere. The creek, the trees, her own heartbeat. Return. Emily lifted the necklace. The golden glow ignited, brighter than before. She lifted the locket. The warmth surged like a pulse. Both objects shimmered until their light merged, splitting the fog with a blade of brilliance. The rememberer recoiled. Emily stepped toward the tear. You want memories. You want pieces of me. But I am done letting you take anything. She raised the glowing objects higher. The rememberer slammed its hand against the inside of the slit. The ground beneath Emily cracked. Roots split upward. The water rippled violently, sending waves crashing against the banks. Emily shouted over the chaos. Let Ben and Harold go. The rememberer's voice shook the air. Return. Emily screamed. Then take this, and she pressed the necklace and locket together. A burst of golden light erupted from her palms, piercing the tear with a resounding crack. The shine cut through the memory realm like lightning, splitting the distorted images inside. The rememberer bellowed as the light struck its chest. Its form convulsed, twisting like branches caught in a storm. The tear shrieked. A sound like tearing metal echoed across the forest. Light spilled outward in a pillar that shot into the sky, splitting the clouds. The water spiraled upward, lifting Emily off the ground. Ben's voice echoed inside the glow. Emily. Harold's voice followed. Emily, hold on. Emily screamed as the tear pulled her forward. She felt the edges of two worlds ripping at her, trying to claim her. She clutched the glowing relics tighter. A final voice whispered in her mind, return yourself. Emily roared back. No. The tear exploded outward. A shockwave tore through the forest. Trees bent backward, fog scattered like ash. The creek surged upward in a massive wave, then collapsed into stillness. Emily fell onto solid ground. The glow faded. The slit was gone. The water lay smooth and black as obsidian. She coughed, gasping for air. Pain throbbed through her arms. The relics still lay in her hands, dim but intact. Emily forced herself to sit up. Ben lay beside her, unconscious but breathing. Harold knelt nearby, stunned, eyes wide with disbelief. Emily whispered their names until Harold turned toward her. Emily, you closed it. You closed the passage. Emily nodded weakly. I think I broke its hold. Harold helped her sit up. Ben stirred, groaning softly. Emily placed a trembling hand on his shoulder. The forest had gone silent, too silent. Emily slowly stood. The creek remained still, but a faint ripple moved across its surface like a breath. Harold looked alarmed. "It is not over," Emily nodded. "No, it is not," because something was rising from the water. A shape, human-sized. Emily braced herself. The figure stepped onto the bank, dripping with black water. Emily froze. Her pulse stopped. The figure lifted its head, and she saw her own face staring back at her. For a long moment, Emily could not breathe. The figure standing across from her was not a distortion, not a flickering memory fragment, not a shadow wearing her face. It was her. Every detail was exact. The curve of her jaw, the scar on her wrist from when she slipped on her bicycle as a kid, the way her hair fell over one eye when wet. Perfect, identical, except for the eyes. Emily's eyes glowed with fierce determination. This other Emily's eyes were empty, perfectly still, owning nothing, remembering everything. Ben scrambled behind her, clutching her arm. "Emily, that is not you." Harold pulled Ben back and positioned himself between them. His voice trembled. That is the creek's final memory. The version of you it kept, the one it refused to release. Emily's throat tightened. The child version in the memory realm had been a fragment, but this was whole, complete. The creek had crafted it from every memory it stole from her, every fear, every moment she had tried to forget. A doppelganger carved from memory and water. The duplicate, Emily tilted her head, water dripping from her hair, rippling in slow motion patterns that did not match gravity. Her lips parted. "Return." The word trembled through the clearing like a sigh from a dying world. Emily stepped forward. "I am not returning. You took something from me, and I am taking it back." The duplicate blinked slowly. The movement was wrong, too slow, too deliberate. Its voice echoed again, layered like several Emilys speaking at once. "You are not whole." Emily stiffened. I broke your realm. I closed the tear. You left part of yourself behind." The forest darkened. The fog thickened. Emily felt a cold wave wash through her chest. For a moment, her heartbeat stumbled. Harold grabbed her shoulders. "Emily, listen to me. It is trying to destabilize you. It cannot exist unless it convinces you that you are incomplete." But the duplicate continued, stepping closer. "Every memory you reclaimed must be returned to me." Emily's pulse pounded. "No, we were one. No, we are still one." Emily felt her breath thinning. The locket warmed against her chest. The necklace vibrated. She swallowed hard and forced herself to speak. "You are not me. You are what the creek made from what it stole." The duplicate tilted its head again. "Then give me the rest. Give me what you reclaimed." Emily took one step back. "I reclaimed my life." The duplicate's expression did not change, but its eyes pulsed faintly, like dark stones reflecting lightning from beneath. The creek behind it rippled in perfect unison, responding to its emotions. Ben whispered behind her, "It is connected, like it controls the water." Harold nodded grimly. "No, worse. The water controls it, and through it. The water is speaking." The duplicate raised one hand. The creek exploded upward. A geyser of black water shot into the air, twisting into a rope-like column before slamming onto the bank. The ground shook violently. Roots split, mud churned and bubbled as shapes formed beneath the surface. Emily braced herself as dozens of figures rose from the water. Figures shaped like people but hollow, bent, incomplete. They stood behind the duplicate like a silent army, their empty eyes trained on her. Ben screamed. Harold shouted her name, but Emily stepped forward. The duplicate stepped forward too, as though they were mirrors. Emily clenched her jaw. "If you want what you took from me," she held up the relics. "Then come take it." The duplicate's expression sharpened. Its voice echoed with 100 whispers. "Return." The hollow figures surged forward. Emily ran. Ben screamed for her. Harold yelled at her to stop. But Emily sprinted straight toward the creek, toward the duplicate version of herself, toward the memory that had been imprisoned for 19 years. The hollow figures chased her, their movements jerky and unnatural, like marionettes controlled by strings made of fog. Their footsteps made no sound. Their hollow faces never blinked. Emily reached the duplicate. They collided with a splash of black water that burst outward like broken ink. Emily grabbed her duplicate by the wrists. It was cold, ice cold, and incredibly strong. The duplicate hissed wordlessly, its face inches from Emily's. "You are the fracture." Emily tightened her grip. "No, I am the part that survived." The duplicate pulled violently, trying to drag her toward the water. Emily dug her heels into the mud. "Let go," the duplicate whispered. "Come home," Emily shouted. "I am home." And she slammed the relics into the duplicate's chest. A scream tore through the clearing. Not a human scream, not an animal scream. 1,000 voices screaming together. The hollow figures writhed, collapsing into puddles of dark water. The creek roared like a storm, waves rising and crashing against invisible barriers. The sky above them flickered with ghostly light. The duplicate convulsed, its limbs spasming, cracks spread across its skin. Its eyes flickered with confusion, then fear. Emily watched in shock. "It is scared." For the first time, the duplicate whispered, voice trembling, "Give us back." Emily held the relics tighter and stepped forward. "No, you do not belong in me. I do not belong in you. I am done being your memory." The duplicate's form shattered, not like glass, not like stone, like water collapsing into itself. Its body dissolved into shimmering droplets suspended in the air, glowing faintly with blue light. The droplets circled Emily once drawn to the relics, then sank into the locket and necklace as though being absorbed. Emily gasped as a flood of warmth rushed into her chest. The golden glow flared around her, brighter than any moment before. Harold and Ben shielded their eyes. When the light faded, Emily staggered. Ben ran to her. "Emily, are you okay?" Emily nodded weakly. "It is gone, I think. I took it back, everything it stole." Harold looked at her strangely. "Emily, your eyes." She blinked. "What about my eyes?" Harold swallowed. "They are brighter." Emily didn't understand at first. Then she realized something else. The creek was quiet, completely, utterly still. The hollow figures had dissolved. The geysers had collapsed. The black water now lay flat and lifeless, reflecting nothing. For the first time since she arrived in Millersford, the creek felt empty. Ben whispered, "Did you destroy it?" Emily looked at the relics glowing faintly in her hands. "No, I think I freed it." Harold frowned. "Freed what?" Emily turned toward the water. "Myself." But before the relief could settle, before any of them could breathe, the water rippled again, slowly, deeply. Harold stepped back. "No, it cannot be." Emily felt her chest tighten. The ripple grew wider. Something stirred beneath the surface. Something massive, something ancient. Ben screamed as the water lifted upward, forming a shape larger than anything they had yet faced. Harold shouted, "Emily, run!" But Emily could not move, because rising from the creek was not a creature, not a memory, not a duplicate. It was something the creek had held long before Emily was born. The first memory, and it was waking. The creek bulged, as if something enormous beneath it inhaled for the first time in centuries. Emily staggered backward, clutching the warm relics in her hands, her heart pounding so violently she thought it might break through her ribs. Ben scrambled behind Harold, shaking uncontrollably, and Harold stood frozen, unable to comprehend the scale of what was rising. For a moment, the water seemed to hold its breath. Then it rose, slowly, deliberately. A colossal silhouette pushed upward, lifting the creek's surface like a blanket. Water slid off its form in thick sheets, revealing something that was not a creature, not a memory, but something older than both. A figure formed from the substance of memory itself. Its body was massive, shapeless at first, then shifting, forming vague impressions of thousands of faces, faces of the lost, faces of the taken, ancient and new. Each face blinked in and out like a flickering light trapped behind translucent skin. Its head rose higher until it towered above the tallest pines, its surface rippling like living obsidian. Ben whispered, voice cracking, "That. What is that?" Harold swallowed hard. His voice came out hollow. The first memory, the wellspring, the origin of the creek's hunger, before the smaller creature, before the rememberer. This was here. Emily felt the ground tremble beneath her feet, the weight of its presence pressed against her mind, as if it were trying to enter her without permission. She stepped back, but the relics glowed in her hands, forming a thin barrier around her. The first memory moved, not with legs or arms, because it had none, but with shifting masses of flowing darkness, as though the entire creek had risen and shaped itself into a monstrous consciousness. A roar echoed from within its chestless body, vibrating through the forest, shaking loose leaves, cracking thin branches. Emily shouted above the noise, "It wants me. It knows I took everything back." Harold pulled Ben behind him. "Emily, you cannot face that. No one can." The first memory's faces shifted. Dozens, then hundreds, staring at her with hollow expressions, some screaming, some pleading, some weeping silent tears that dissolved into the surface of its body. Every memory the creek had ever devoured lived inside that thing. Emily felt her breath thin. "They are trapped." Harold shook his head violently. "No, those are not souls. Those are impressions, echoes of what the creek consumed. You cannot save them. They are not alive. Emily tightened her grip. But I can end this. A deep vibration rolled through the ground as the first memory lowered its head toward her. For the first time, Emily saw something like intention behind the swirling faces. It recognized her. It remembered her. She was the child it failed to take, the mark it never erased, the survivor whose mind it once entered, and whose fear it fed on for 19 years. Ben cried out, "Emily, run!" But Emily stepped forward instead. The relics glowed brighter, threads of golden light weaving between her fingers. The first memory extended a limb, if it could be called a limb. A tendril of thick water and darkness swirled toward her, reaching like a tidal wave. Harold grabbed her arm. "Emily, you cannot let it touch you. If it does, it will take everything, not just your memories, your entire self." Emily looked at him, eyes fierce. "Then I cannot let it touch the earth either." She ripped her arm free. The first memory lunged. Emily raised the relics, crossing them before her. A burst of golden light exploded outward, colliding with the tendril of darkness. The clearing erupted with force, wind rushing in all directions. Trees bent backward as if bowing. The tendril recoiled, hissing like boiling water. Harold shielded Ben. "Emily, what did you do?" She didn't answer. She felt something inside her shift, like a door opening. The relics had awakened something, connected to something ancient, something that belonged to her long before she understood it. The first memory roared again, shaking the air. It surged forward, its vast form twisting and coiling like a storm-given shape. Emily felt the air collapse around her. The relics glowed hotter, almost burning her palms. Ben shouted from behind Harold, "Emily, stop! You will die." Emily stepped closer to the creature, then let it come. "I am tired of running." The first memory slammed another tendril forward. Thicker, faster, more violent. Emily braced the relics again. Golden light burst outward a second time, clashing with the dark mass. The sound of impact echoed like thunder. Harold yelled over the chaos, "Emily, you are feeding it. The more you fight, the stronger it becomes." Emily grit her teeth. "Then how do I kill it?" Harold shook his head helplessly. "You cannot kill a memory, but you can sever its anchor." Emily turned sharply. "Its anchor?" Harold pointed to the creek. "The water is its root. Break the root. Destroy the body." Emily looked at the black surface beneath the immense creature. The water churned, glowing faintly blue, pulsing like a heart. If she broke that connection, the first memory would collapse, but doing so required going near it. Emily inhaled shakily. "I can do it." Ben screamed, "You cannot. It will swallow you whole." Emily turned to him, her voice soft but unshakable. "Ben, it already tried once. Now it does not get another chance." The first memory pulled back its massive form, preparing another strike. The faces swirling inside it shrieked in unison. Emily pressed the relics together. A surge of warmth rushed through her chest and spread through her arms. She felt her limbs lighten, her fear dissolve, her mind sharpen. The golden glow surrounded her completely. She stepped toward the water, Harold shouted, "Emily, wait!" But it was too late. Emily leapt into the air as the first memory hurled a storm of dark water toward her. She lifted the relics above her head, light bursting outward in every direction. The attack shattered against her like waves against stone. Emily dove into the center of the creek, landing on the black surface without sinking. The water rippled beneath her feet, reacting to her presence. The first memory reared back. Enraged, Emily knelt and pressed both relics into the water. The creek screamed, a sound like 1,000 people crying out in terror. The surface cracked beneath her palms, splitting into fragments of black and blue. Light shot upward from the cracks, illuminating the forest like dawn. The first memory convulsed violently, its form tearing open as if splitting along invisible seams. Faces dissolved, limbs disintegrated, tendrils curled inward like dying roots. Emily felt the water pulse beneath her hands, trying to swallow her whole. She screamed and pushed the relics deeper. The creek shattered. A pillar of golden light erupted upward, engulfing the first memory. Its massive body collapsed from the top downward, melting into streams of liquid shadow that evaporated before touching the ground. The roar faded, the water stilled, the sky cleared. Emily rose slowly, the relics dimming in her hands. Ben and Harold ran to her, slipping into the mud but not caring, reaching her just as she collapsed into their arms. Harold whispered, "Emily, you did it." Emily looked toward the creek. The surface was perfectly clear, reflecting the sky and trees like a pristine mirror. No blackness, no glow, no memories trapped beneath. It was just water. Ben hugged her tightly. "It is over." Emily tried to smile, but then the reflection in the water shifted. The creek darkened. A whisper rose not from the water, but from inside her own mind. "Return yourself." Emily's breath caught. The first memory was gone, but something of it had not left. It was inside her. Emily did not remember closing her eyes. She only remembered the darkness spreading across her vision like ink in water, thick and heavy, swallowing the edges of the world. Ben's voice called her name. Harold's hands gripped her shoulders, and the forest spun violently around her. Then everything went silent. When she opened her eyes, she was back on the ground beside the creek, breath sharp and uneven, the metallic taste of memory still clinging to her tongue. Harold hovered above her, fear carved into the lines of his face. Ben knelt beside her, gripping her arms so tightly his fingers trembled. "Emily, Emily, say something." Emily swallowed hard. "I am here." But the voice in her head whispered back, layered beneath her words. "We are here." Her stomach sank. The first memory had not died. It had withdrawn. It had slid into her through the relics when she shattered its anchor. It had done what the creek had always wanted to do. It had returned itself through her. Emily pressed a palm to her forehead. A throb pulsed behind her eyes like a second heartbeat. The world flickered at the edges, colors shifting unnaturally. Ben whispered, "Harold, something is wrong with her." Harold stared at her carefully. "Emily, tell me what you feel." Emily breathed slowly, every inhale sending ripples of warmth and cold through her chest. "I feel crowded. The voice inside her echoed softly. "We remember." She flinched. The relics in her hands pulsed weakly, their golden light dimmer than before. Harold knelt beside her. "Emily, look at me." She raised her eyes to his. "You brought back too much. You took in more than your own memories." Emily felt the truth in his voice like a weight settling into bone. The first memory held centuries of impressions, faces, voices, sights no human consciousness was meant to contain, and now it was inside her, shifting like a creature adjusting to a new cage. Harold continued, "If it grows stronger, it will use you, not like the creek used the duplicate. Worse, it will speak through you, walk through you." Emily clenched her jaw. "So I fight it." Harold hesitated. "You cannot fight something that already knows everything you fear." The world wavered again. The trees rippled like reflections on disturbed water. Ben gasped as a shadow flickered behind Emily, tall, twisted, vaguely human. Emily spun around, heart pounding. Nothing was there. Ben trembled. "Emily, are you seeing things?" Emily rubbed her eyes hard. The creature from the creek, the rememberer, the duplicate, the hollow figures, the first memory. Everything she had faced now existed inside her as impressions. It was impossible to know where memory ended and reality began. Harold stood slowly. "We need to leave the creek now, before it can reach through you." Emily nodded, struggling to her feet. Every movement felt like she was dragging someone else's limbs. The forest twisted slightly, the ground humming beneath her. As they stepped away from the water, a whisper drifted through the trees. "Emily." Emily froze. Harold whispered, "Do not answer it." But it was not the first memory's voice. It was her mother's. Emily clenched her fists. "That is not real." Her mother's voice echoed again, softer. "Emily, come back." The forest bent in the direction of the voice, trees shifting like doors opening. Ben whispered, "It is showing you memories again." Emily shook her head violently. "No, these are not memories. They are bait." But her legs moved on their own, drawn toward the whisper. The world blurred into a collage of fragments. Her mother's face, the cabin porch, the creek at dusk. The first memory twisted her memories into illusions, each one pulling her deeper. Harold grabbed her arm hard. "Do not walk toward it. Emily, look at me. Listen. Use the relics. Anchor yourself." Emily closed her eyes and clutched the relics. Warmth surged through her palms, pushing away the false memories. The forest snapped back into true form. But the moment she steadied herself, a new vision slammed into her. A sky made of fractured memories, a vast plain of black stone, hands reaching from a glowing chasm. Emily gasped. "The memory realm. It is pulling me back." Harold cursed under his breath. "The first memory wants you to open the way again." Emily tightened her grip on the relics. "I will not." Ben's voice trembled. "Emily, what if it forces you?" The air around them darkened. Wind spiraled at their feet. The forest bent inward, every tree leaning toward Emily as though dragged by invisible gravity. The first memory's voice echoed inside her mind. "Return." Emily shouted. "No." The wind intensified. Fog swirled violently around them, forming a funnel of mist that lifted leaves and dirt into the air. Emily staggered backward, but the pull grew stronger. A tear flickered in the air before her, a thin vertical line of light forming again. Harold stepped between her and the forming slit. "Emily, fight it now." Emily pressed the relics against her chest. Golden light flared, cutting through the fog. The tear flickered, struggling to stabilize. The voice inside her fought back, whispering with thousands of layered tones. "You are the doorway." Emily fell to her knees. The relics pulsed violently, as if burning from the inside out. The golden light flickered unsteadily. Harold knelt beside her, gripping both her arms. "Listen to me. The relics came from your family line. They are bound to your memory, not the creeks. If you use them together, you can sever its hold." Emily gasped. But how? Then a thought appeared inside her mind, clear and absolute. Because it was not entirely her thought. It was the first memory's thought. "Destroy them." Emily's eyes snapped open in horror. "No." Ben lunged forward. "Emily, do not listen to it." But the relics heated dangerously in her palms. At this rate, they would crack or explode. The first memory whispered again. "Break them. Break the anchor." Harold grabbed her wrists, forcing the relics apart. "Emily, look at me. The relics are your anchor, not its. If you break them, you free it forever." Emily's breath shook. The golden light flickered. The forest trembled. The tear widened another inch. Ben screamed, "Emily, please." Emily closed her eyes. She inhaled deeply. She exhaled sharply. And she made her choice. She pressed the relics together. Golden light erupted through the clearing, blinding even through closed eyelids. The wind died instantly. The tear shrieked, then collapsed inward. The first memory screamed inside her mind, not in triumph, but in pain. The relics fused into one, a single brilliant object, a medallion. Emily opened her eyes, staring at the fused relics in her palm. The first memory's voice faded to a distant echo. Harold gasped, "Emily, what did you do?" Emily stood slowly. The medallion pulsed once, twice, then grew still. She whispered, "I changed the anchor." Ben stared at her. "What does that mean?" Emily looked toward the creek. The water reflected her face again, but something shifted behind her eyes. Something vast, something old. Harold whispered, "Emily, tell me you did not." Emily turned to them slowly. Her voice was calm, too calm. "The first memory is still inside me." Ben stumbled back. "Then how is the tear gone?" Emily lowered her gaze to the glowing medallion. "Because I am holding it here." She lifted her eyes again, and for the first time, Harold and Ben saw something in Emily's expression that did not belong to her. Something watching, something waiting, something remembering. For several long seconds, Emily stood motionless at the edge of the creek, the newly fused medallion glowing faintly in her hand. Ben watched her with wide, terrified eyes. Harold remained frozen, studying her with a mixture of dread and disbelief. The air around them felt wrong, heavier than before, as if the forest was holding its breath. Emily finally spoke. "It's quiet," Ben whispered. "Emily, are you still you?" Emily turned her head slowly, and for a moment, her expression was perfectly normal. Then her eyes shifted something deep inside them, rippling like black water beneath ice. She blinked hard, forcing the disturbance back. "Mostly," she said. Harold's face tightened. Mostly is not enough. Emily looked down at the medallion. Its glow pulsated in rhythm with her heartbeat. Before, the relics had protected her from the creek. Now, fused together, they anchored the first memory inside her. She could feel it moving within her mind, watching through her thoughts, pressing against the inside of her skull like something testing the limits of its new cage. The voice inside her whispered again, "We wait." She flinched, clutching her head. Ben stepped toward her. "Emily, do not touch me," she snapped, then immediately grimaced. "I'm sorry. I can feel it pulling at everything. My memories, my senses, even my voice." Harold approached cautiously. "Emily, listen to me. The first memory cannot exist without an anchor. You prevented it from returning to the creek, but you did not destroy it. You trapped it inside you." Emily nodded slowly. "I know." Ben's voice cracked. "So how do we get it out?" Harold swallowed. "There might be a way, but if we try to force separation, it could take her mind with it." Emily exhaled shakily. "So we do nothing?" Harold hesitated. "No, but we need time." Emily turned her gaze toward the forest. The fog had thinned. The trees no longer leaned inward. The creek rippled gently as if satisfied for the first time in centuries, but the peace felt false, temporary. She trembled. "It's awake inside me. It's waiting." Ben's voice was barely a whisper. "Waiting for what?" Emily didn't answer. She wasn't sure she knew, but she sensed something unsettling, like the first memory was crawling through her mind, mapping it, searching for weaknesses. Then, without warning, the world around her flickered. The forest blurred into streaks of color. The ground dissolved. Emily gasped as her surroundings twisted into liquid shapes. She staggered backward. Ben and Harold shouted her name, their voices warped and distant. Emily fell to her knees. A shadow stretched across her vision, towering above her. Dozens of faces swirled across it. Faces from the first memory, faces she had seen dissolved, faces she had thought she had destroyed. They whispered together, "Return." Emily screamed, clutching the medallion. The golden light burst outward, breaking the vision. The forest snapped back into place like a shattered mirror reassembling. She collapsed, panting. Ben rushed to her side. Emily, what happened?" Emily pressed a shaking hand to her forehead. "It's showing me things, trying to pull me back. It wants to reopen the tear." Harold cursed under his breath. "It is probing you, testing how much control it has." Emily trembled. "I can feel it growing stronger. Every time I use the medallion, it feeds on the connection." Ben backed away in fear. "So what happens when it gets strong enough to take over?" Emily didn't respond because she already knew the answer. The first memory had lost its anchor in the creek. It had no place to survive except within her, and if it gained control of her body, it would not just reopen the tear. It would drag the entire world into the memory realm. Harold knelt beside her. "Emily, there is one option. You sever the link yourself." Emily looked at him weakly. "You mean die?" Harold's silence confirmed it. Ben cried out, "No, there has to be another way." Harold's voice lowered. "If the first memory stays inside her long enough, it will consume her mind, and then it will not let her die." Emily stared down at the medallion. A quiet hum vibrated through it. A whisper followed. "We remember." Emily closed her eyes. Images flashed behind her eyelids. Memories she had forgotten. Memories from the creek. Memories from the first memories victims. Their fear, their final moments, their voices. Ben pulled her into a hug despite her earlier warning. "We'll fix this. We'll figure it out. I won't let you." Emily froze. A shadow rose behind him. Tall, twisted, silent. Its fingers hovered above Ben's shoulder. Emily shoved him aside. "Ben, move." Ben stumbled away, confused. "What?" Emily pointed a shaking finger at the apparition. "You see that?" Ben stared. Harold stared. Nothing was there. Harold's face paled. "Emily, only you can see it," Emily whispered. "It's showing me what it could do." Her vision blurred again. The shadow lunged. Emily screamed as it reached for her. The world twisted. Voices flooded her mind. She felt herself sliding into the memory realm again. But the medallion burned against her skin. Light exploded outward. The shadow shattered. Emily crashed onto her side. Gasping, Ben reached for her. "Emily, we need to get you away from here." Harold shook his head. "There is nowhere to go. It is not tied to the creek anymore. It is tied to her." Suddenly, the ground shook. The creek rippled violently. Fog burst upward like smoke. Harold's eyes widened. "No, no, no, no." It is drawing power from her, through her. Emily staggered to her feet. The water began spiraling inward, forming a whirlpool. Light flickered beneath the surface. Ben shouted, "Emily, stop it." Emily lifted the medallion, tears streaming down her face. "I am trying." "It is not listening." The first memory's voice filled her skull, louder than ever. "Return." A tendril of black water rose from the creek. Harold grabbed Emily's arm. "Emily, you have to fight it with your memories, not with the relic." Ben yelled, "Emily, hold on to something real, something that is yours." Emily pressed her other hand against her heart. Her mother's laugh, her father's voice, her childhood before the creek, her life. She screamed, "This is my mind." The medallion burst with golden light. The tendril froze, trembling violently before exploding into mist. The whirlpool collapsed. The creek calmed. Emily fell backward, unconscious before she hit the ground. Ben caught her, his voice breaking. "Emily, please, wake up." Harold checked her pulse with shaking hands. "She's alive." But the first memory, it is deeper inside her now. "Hiding," Ben whispered. "What do we do?" Harold stared at the medallion glowing faintly in Emily's limp hand. "We find a way to extract it before she becomes it." Emily's eyes fluttered open to a dim, wavering light. The world around her felt distant, blurred at the edges as though she were looking through rippling water. Her breathing came shallow and uneven, every inhale shadowed by a second breath that didn't belong to her. She forced herself upright and found Ben crouched close, his face pale with worry. Harold stood nearby, pacing, muttering under his breath as he scanned the forest around them. Emily whispered, "How long was I out?" Ben exhaled in relief. "Maybe 10 minutes." It felt like hours. Harold knelt in front of her, studying her eyes with grave intensity. "Emily, can you hear anything? Voices? Echoes?" Emily blinked slowly. She heard everything. The first memory's voice was softer now, but tighter, coiled like a serpent resting in her chest. It no longer roared. It whispered. It waited. We remain. Emily rubbed her temples. It is hiding deeper inside me. I can feel it, like a weight pressing against my mind. It's waiting for something. Harold swallowed. Or waiting for you to weaken. Emily lowered her gaze. I felt it pulling me while I was unconscious. Pulling hard. It wants to open the way again. And this time, it will use me completely. Ben's hands tightened around her shoulders. Then we won't let it get to that. Emily attempted a weak smile, but her expression collapsed quickly. She looked out at the forest. The fog had returned, swirling at ankle height. The trees leaned inward again, though subtly, as if waiting for her next move. Harold began packing his satchel. We cannot stay here. Every second you remain near the creek, the first memory grows stronger. We need distance and a plan. Emily nodded slowly, but she hesitated. Then something occurred to her. Where are the creatures? The rememberer. The hollow ones. My duplicate. Harold shook his head. Gone. All gone. When you shattered the creek's anchor, everything not belonging to this world dissolved. Your duplicate. The hollow memories. Emily took a slow breath. Relief should have followed, but a different fear crept in. Then why does the forest still feel alive? Ben glanced around, shivering, because it is watching her. Harold snapped. Enough. We move. Now. They helped Emily to her feet. Her legs shook violently, as though she were standing on unstable ground. The medallion glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Every pulse sent a tremor through her skull. We remember. She winced. Harold noticed immediately. Emily, what did it just say? She hesitated. Nothing important. Harold's eyes narrowed. Do not lie to me. Not now. Emily sighed. It said, we remember. Ben swallowed hard. Remember what? Emily turned slowly, facing the creek. The surface shimmered like glass, perfectly still, but behind its reflection, she sensed something vast, something observant. Everything, she whispered. It remembers everything it ever consumed, and now it remembers everything about me too. Harold gripped her arm. Then we must act before it becomes you. Emily stared at him. Before I become it, you mean? A sudden crunch of branches snapped all three of their heads toward the tree line. Ben whispered, is someone there? Harold raised a hand for silence. Emily squinted into the darkness. A shadow moved between the trees, tall, slow, deliberate. Emily's pulse spiked. Not a creature, not a hallucination. This was something else. Something real. Harold hissed, stay behind me. Ben clung to Emily as Harold stepped forward. A figure emerged from the fog. Human, an older man, his clothes soaked, mud smeared across his face, eyes hollow yet ferociously alive. He stumbled toward them, gasping for breath, hands shaking violently. Harold froze. Emily, that is, Ben whispered. The fisherman, the one who disappeared last year. Emily's chest tightened. She remembered the newspaper headline, Local man vanishes near Millersford Creek. Search ends after 3 weeks. The man looked broken, barely held together by desperation. Harold approached him slowly. Sir, are you hurt? The man shook violently and pointed at Emily. It followed me. Emily stiffened. What followed you? He staggered closer, eyes wild. The water, the voices. They crawled out of the creek. They whispered my name. They said I belonged to them. Ben stepped back. Harold steadied the man. What did you see in the water? The fisherman stared at Emily again, horror overtaking him. I saw you. Emily froze. Harold shot her a glance. He saw a duplicate too. The man shook his head violently. No, not a duplicate, not a reflection. I saw you walking beneath the water. I saw your face look at me from inside the creek. It smiled at me. Emily's breath caught. Whatever the first memory had kept, whatever it had crafted from her memories, had been hunting long before she returned to Millersford. Harold whispered, Emily, it has been projecting your image for years. The fisherman grabbed Emily's wrist suddenly. His eyes rolled back in terror. They said you would come back. They said the marked one returns. They said the door opens when she does. Emily felt cold seep through her arm, cold that wasn't hers. The first memory stirred inside her. We remain. Emily tore her arm free, breath trembling. The fisherman collapsed to his knees, sobbing uncontrollably. Harold held him steady while Ben hovered helplessly. Emily pressed a palm to her forehead. It's not done. It's still reaching out, calling to anyone marked. Ben whispered, Who else did it take? Harold's voice grew tense. Too many generations. Emily stared deeper into the forest. She felt faint tremors beneath her feet, the same ones she felt in the memory realm. The world wavered slightly, as if the boundary between realms was thinning. The first memory whispered again. We open. Emily gripped the medallion tightly. No, I will not let you. The world flickered. The trees warped inward. Fog thickened, swallowing the fisherman's cries. The ground split open beneath Emily. Ben screamed. Harold grabbed her shoulders. Their voices echoed into nothing. Emily fell, but not far. This time, the world folded around her like paper, and she landed on her feet in a forest that was not her own. A memory forest. Dark, perfectly still. Branches hung like ribs around her. The sky above was cracked like old glass. The ground shimmered with moving reflections. Emily spun around. Ben, Harold, silence. Then footsteps. Emily whipped toward the sound. A figure walked out from behind a tree. Her face, her expression, her posture, not the duplicate from before. Something older, something purer, a version of herself drawn from the memories the first memory fed upon. Emily whispered, You are not real, but the figure smiled. We are becoming real. Emily stepped back. No, the memory version of herself tilted its head. Your mind is not strong enough to hold us. The medallion is cracking. The boundaries are thinning. Soon, we will pass through. Emily pressed the medallion to her chest. I will not let the first memory use me. The memory figure approached slowly. It already is. Emily felt the world shift around her. The trees bent toward her. The ground pulsed. The sky flickered. The figure circled her. Emily Turner, age 10, fell into the creek. Marked, returned, escaped, remembered. Emily felt nausea build. Stop! The figure leaned closer. You broke the anchor. You fused the relics. You invited us in. Emily shook her head. I trapped you. The memory figure smiled wider. You trapped yourself. Emily stumbled back. Her surroundings trembled violently. The first memory's voice rose like a tide. Return. Emily screamed, clutching the medallion. The memory figure lunged. Light exploded. Emily was yanked upward as the memory world shattered, and she awoke on the ground again, Harold shaking her, Ben crying, the fisherman gone. Harold whispered, "Emily, Emily, stay with us." Emily opened her eyes. Ben gasped. Harold froze. Emily blinked once, twice, then felt something move behind her eyes. Her voice trembled. "It's getting stronger, and I am running out of time." Emily sat upright so fast that Ben nearly fell backward. Her breath came harsh and uneven, each inhale dragging a thin thread of cold through her chest. Harold steadied her shoulders, his eyes scanning her face with fear that he no longer bothered to hide. "Emily, what did you see this time?" Emily wiped sweat from her forehead. It wasn't a vision, it was a warning. Ben swallowed. "From what? Or from who?" Emily hesitated, then answered truthfully, "From me, or whatever version of me the first memory is building." The forest around them seemed to lean closer at her words. The fog twisted in thin spirals, brushing against the trees like something alive. Emily tightened her grip on the medallion. The glow was faint now, barely visible. And yet she could feel unimaginable power vibrating beneath the surface of its cracked golden shell. Harold stood. "We need to move. Every minute you stay here, it gets stronger, and if it gains enough control..." Ben interrupted. Panicked, "It will use her to reopen the tear, or worse." Emily closed her eyes. "I can feel it learning me, not just my memories, my fears, my thoughts, my voice." As if reacting, her shadow shifted unnaturally against the ground. Ben jumped back. "Emily, your shadow." Emily didn't look. "I know it isn't mine anymore." Harold exhaled sharply. "We must leave the forest. We find a place where the creek cannot influence her. Maybe distance will weaken its hold." Emily shook her head. "It's not tied to the creek anymore. It's tied to me. No distance will weaken it." Harold fell silent. Ben whispered, "Then what do we do?" Emily lifted her gaze toward the treetops. The branches trembled. The fog thickened. A quiet hum vibrated through the air, almost electrical. "Something is coming," she said. Ben grabbed her arm. "Something or someone," Emily answered with a trembling whisper. "Both." Before either man could question her, the forest around them shifted. The trees bent not from wind but from disturbance. Leaves rained downward in spiraling patterns. A figure stepped through the fog. Not a creature, not a memory, a woman. Her hair dripped with creek water. Though she had not come from the creek, her clothes were old. Decades old, faded and frayed. Her eyes were hollow, but her steps were steady, purposeful. Ben gasped. Who is that?" Harold stiffened. "Emily, look closely." Emily did, and froze. She recognized the woman, even though she had never met her, because the woman looked like Emily. Not the child, not the duplicate, but older, changed, marked. Emily whispered, "She is me." Ben stammered. "That is impossible." Harold whispered, "Not impossible. A projection of what the first memory wants her to become." The woman Emily's possible future stopped a few feet from them. Her voice was soft, liquid, distant. "It is almost time." Emily stepped back. "No, you are not real." The woman tilted her head gently. "Not yet." Harold took a protective step forward. What do you want? The woman's eyes shifted toward him. Nothing from you. Her gaze returned to Emily. Only from her. Emily's pulse pounded. Why show me this? What is the first memory trying to do? The woman's lips curved into the faintest smile. To prepare you, Emily raised the medallion. I will never be what it wants. The older version of her shook her head. You already are. You carry it. You speak with it. You dream with it. And soon, you will remember everything. Emily stepped back. I refuse. The woman extended a hand, not comforting, not threatening, but inviting. Emily Turner, you cannot contain something ancient without becoming ancient yourself. You broke the anchor to save your world. Now you are the anchor. Emily trembled. No, her future self stepped closer. Yes, Ben yelled. Stay away from her. The woman didn't even look at him. Emily clutched the medallion. Stop trying to control me. Her future self replied softly. I am not controlling you. I am warning you. When the first memory finishes merging, you will no longer separate from it. You will be able to see everything it ever consumed, every mind it ever touched, every life it ever took. Emily whispered, I do not want that. The woman's expression softened. That is why you will break. No human mind can hold that much truth. Emily felt her throat tighten. Then tell me how to stop it. The woman paused, then spoke slowly. You do not stop it. You finish it. Harold frowned. Finish what? Emily's future self looked directly at Emily. You must return to the memory realm. Ben shook his head violently. No, absolutely not. She barely escaped last time. The woman answered without looking at him. She did not escape. She was released. The first memory let her go so she could bring it out with her. The air thickened. The fog pressed inward. Emily whispered, why do I have to go back? Her future self's expression turned grave. Because only inside the memory realm can you sever the connection fully. Only there can you destroy the part that remains inside you. Emily raised the medallion. Can this help me? The woman nodded once. It is your weapon, your anchor, your key. But once you enter the memory realm again, it will also be your cage. Ben stepped in front of Emily, shaking. We are not letting her go back. The woman looked at him slowly. You will, or she will go alone. Harold grabbed Emily's hand. Emily, think. It might be lying. The woman's voice dropped to a whisper. I cannot lie. I am her. Emily met her future self's eyes. And what happens if I stay here? Her future self answered gently, almost sadly. Then you become me. Emily felt the first memory stir inside her. Her fingers twitched involuntarily. Her shadow flickered. The hum in her ears grew louder. Ben grabbed her shoulders. Emily, do not listen to it. Harold tightened his grip on her wrist. We still have time. We can search the town, the archives. Something must exist to help us. Emily shook her head. No, Ben's voice cracked. Emily. She looked at both of them with a trembling but determined stare. I cannot run from this. If I stay here, it will spill into your minds, into your memories, into this entire town, and then no one will escape. Harold whispered. Emily. She exhaled. I have to finish it. I have to go back. Her future self stepped closer. Then take my final warning. Emily swallowed hard. What is it? The woman leaned in, voice quieter than breath. When you enter the memory realm again, do not try trust what looks like you." Emily shivered. Then the woman stepped back, began dissolving into mist. First her arms, then her torso, then her face, until her final whisper drifted through the fog. "We are waiting." Then she vanished. The forest fell silent. Ben whispered, "Emily, please don't go." Emily squeezed his hand. "I have to." Harold stared at the medallion. "Then we go with you." Emily shook her head slowly. "No, this part I do alone." Ben protested. "Absolutely not." But Emily lifted the medallion. The golden cracks shimmered. The forest bent inward. The air tightened. The first memory whispered, "Return." Emily whispered back, "I am coming." The medallion glowed brighter, and the world shattered around her. Emily hit the ground hard, but she did not feel pain. The world had gone silent, stripped of wind, stripped of sound, stripped of time. She pushed herself up slowly, her palms pressing against cold stone that rippled beneath her touch like disturbed water. When she rose to her feet, the memory realm stretched around her vast, fractured, and alive. It looked different now, more complete, more aware. The sky was no longer cracked glass. It was a wide expanse of shifting reflections, scenes playing across it like memories on a screen. The forest around her existed as silhouettes carved from shadow, their trunks hollow, their branches bending inward as if listening. The ground pulsed faintly beneath her feet, as though the realm possessed a heartbeat of its own. Emily tightened her grip on the medallion. It glowed faintly in her hand, shimmering with gold cracks that pulsed like veins. She whispered to herself, "You can do this." The first memory answered from inside her, "We can do this." Emily staggered forward. "No, not we, me." The voice inside her fell silent. She took several steps into the memory realm, every movement stirring faint echoes, voices whispering, laughter long forgotten, screams from those who had been consumed. She stood tall despite the mounting dread. Ben's voice echoed faintly in her mind, "Emily, please be okay." Harold's voice followed, "Find the core, sever the connection." Emily breathed deeply. "I will." A soft crunch behind her. Emily spun around. Nothing. The trees remained still, the ground calm, but something had shifted. She felt pressure against her chest, as if someone had placed a hand on the inside of her ribs. The first memory whispered, "It begins." Emily ignored it and continued forward. The terrain shifted with her steps, stone dissolving into water, water becoming shadow, shadow reforming into stone. She recognized the path ahead, the chasm, the place where she had first fought the hands of the lost. But now it was much larger. The glowing fissure stretched miles wide, jagged and trembling like the cracked foundation of a dying world. Pale light rose from deep within it, illuminating the memory realm in ghostly waves. The air smelled of cold rain and something metallic. Emily approached the edge and peered down. Faces floated beneath the surface of the chasm. Hundreds, thousands. Their eyes tracked her together, unified by desperation. Emily whispered, "I am sorry." A voice answered from behind her, "Do not be sorry. They are not real." Emily turned sharply and froze. Her future self stood only a few feet away, fully formed, no longer flickering, no longer translucent. She looked solid, alive, too alive. The same soaked hair, the same hollow eyes, her expression calm, Almost comforting, Emily whispered. You again, her future self nodded once. You called me back. Emily's grip tightened on the medallion. No, the first memory called you. Her future self gave a faint smile. The first memory cannot create without your permission. It only shapes what you fear. Emily hesitated. Then you are not real. Her future self stepped closer. I am as real as you allow me to be. Emily raised the medallion. Get away from me. Her future self stopped. I am not here to harm you. I am here to complete you. Emily's breath caught. Complete me how? Her future self pointed to the chasm. The first memory is not trying to take you. It is trying to merge with you. You have what it lacks. A vessel, a mind, a voice. Emily's stomach turned. I will not give it my mind. Her future self stepped even closer. Then you must cut yourself apart from it. Sever the last thread. Emily whispered, that is why I am here. Her future self nodded. Good, then you must descend. Emily looked at the chasm again. It was bottomless. Harold's warning echoed in her mind. Only inside the memory realm can the connection be severed. Emily turned back to her future self. You want me to jump? The woman nodded. It is the only way. Emily took a deep breath and stepped toward the edge. Her future self suddenly said quietly, but do not trust what follows you into the dark. Emily froze. Follows me. The woman pointed behind her. Emily turned and her heart dropped. Another version of her stood 10 feet away. Not the future self, not the child self, not the duplicate. This version was wrong. Its body twitched unnaturally, as though stitched together from broken reflections. Its eyes were empty, its smile wide and trembling. It stepped forward, limbs bending at impossible angles. Emily stepped back. No, not again. Her future self whispered, that one is not you. It is the copy the first memory made without your permission. It wants your place. The twisted version lunged. Emily barely raised the medallion before impact. Golden light burst outward, blasting the twisted version across the ground. It rose again instantly, limbs cracking, face twisting. Her future self spoke urgently. You must go. Now! Emily faced the chasm. If I jump, it will follow. Her future self nodded. Yes, and down there. You will not be able to tell which one is you. Emily swallowed hard. How do I survive that? Her future self stepped close and touched her shoulder. Remember this. Emily's heart raced. Your memories are yours. Not the creaks, not the first memories, not ours. Emily nodded. Her future self stepped back. Emily turned toward the chasm. The twisted version shrieked behind her. The ground trembled beneath her feet. She whispered to the medallion, "Hold me together." Then she jumped. The world fell away. The chasm swallowed her whole. Cold light raced past her like shooting stars in reverse. Screams echoed from somewhere below. The twisted version dove after her, its shrieks slicing the air. Emily reached for the medallion as shadows wrapped around her legs. Then, impact. Emily crashed onto solid ground. Gasping, she staggered upright and froze. Hundreds of doors stretched across an endless plain. Old doors, broken doors, waterlogged doors, each one marked with carvings resembling memories, birthdays, tragedies, childhood moments, fears. Some radiated warmth, others leaked shadow. Emily whispered, "What is this?" The first memory answered inside her, "Your mind." Emily felt her knees weaken. This was her. Every fear she ever had, every memory she ever lost, every lie the creak told her. Each door whispered, pulling at her, begging to be open. Footsteps echoed behind her. Emily turned. Her twisted version stood only a few feet away, but beneath its writhing face, its mouth was forming words, not shrieks. "Return." Emily lifted the medallion. "No, I am ending this." She stepped toward the first door, and the memory realm trembled violently in anticipation. Emily stepped toward the first door, her fingers trembling as they brushed against its warped wooden surface. The texture felt wrong, not smooth, not rough, but alive, as if the memory it contained pulsed beneath the grain. The medallion in her hand glowed faintly, warning her, guiding her, urging caution. Behind her, the twisted version of herself crept silently across the memory plane, its limbs cracked with each step, shifting at impossible angles, its face contorting into expressions no living being should possess. Its whisper echoed faintly through the realm. "Return." Emily ignored it. She pressed her palm flat against the first door. A memory throbbed beneath her hand. Her mother's voice, her father's laughter, a warm kitchen lit by golden sunlight. Safety, love, a memory from before the creek touched her life. Emily's breath caught. This was hers. She turned the doorknob. A flood of warm air burst outward, washing over her and carrying with it the smell of cinnamon and old pine. She saw herself at age 8, laughing as her father spun her in slow circles. She reached toward them instinctively, then froze. The memory flickered, her father's face warped, her childhood self twisted arms stretching unnaturally, head tilting in a way that broke the illusion entirely. The warm kitchen dissolved into cold shadows. The memory had been corrupted. The first memory whispered inside her, "We have touched everything." Emily yanked her hand back. The door slammed shut. She took a step back, pulse racing. Each door around her hummed now, vibrating with tampered memories. Some glowed faintly blue, others deep black. Some leaked fog from their cracks. She realized the truth. The first memory had contaminated her past. Every memory stored here. Every door was a battlefield. Emily clenched her jaw. "I am not losing myself to you." She turned toward the next door, but the twisted version lunged. Emily spun, raising the medallion, blasting it back with a wave of golden light. The creature shrieked, its limbs bending backward as it skidded across the shifting ground. But it rose again immediately, smiling with that fractured grin. "We are you," Emily screamed. "No, you are not." She sprinted deeper into the plane, the twisted version chasing close behind. Doors flickered by on both sides, some slamming open as she passed, revealing distorted scenes of her childhood, others whispering her name in dozens of warped voices. Emily stopped suddenly at a door unlike the others. It was black, perfectly black, no carvings, no cracks, no memories leaking through, just a single flawless surface that reflected nothing Emily whispered. "What are you?" The medallion pulsed violently. This door scared even the first memory, which meant it mattered. Emily wrapped her fingers around the cold handle. The twisted version shrieked and lunged. Emily twisted the knob and fell through the doorway. Darkness swallowed her whole. A cold wind brushed her cheek. Something whispered her name in a voice made of air. Then the darkness parted like curtains. Emily found herself back at the creek, but not in the real world, not in a memory. Somewhere between, the water was pitch black, the surface still enough to reflect a perfect mirror. Trees surrounded her, but their branches curved inward, like the ribs of a massive skeleton. The sky shimmered with thousands of memories floating like stars. Emily turned and froze. Her younger self stood at the water's edge, 10 years old, blue jacket, missing front tooth, the same girl who nearly drowned that night. Emily whispered, "You!" The girl did not look up. Instead, she stared into the creek, her reflection rippling. She whispered a single word, "Stay." Emily shook her head. "I am not staying. I am ending this." The little girl looked over her shoulder. Her eyes were pitch black. The first memory had used her image before, but this one felt different, more personal, more dangerous. Emily stepped forward. "I am not a child anymore. You cannot trick me with old memories." The child tilted her head, then spoke in a deeper voice. "You brought us here." Emily froze. The child rose slowly, her form stretching, elongating, becoming distorted. Shadows poured from her eyes. Her body cracked open like glass. From within the child, a shape began to emerge. Tall, writhing, terrifying. The first memory was using her younger self as a shell. Emily backed up, medallion shaking in her grip. The air folded, the world darkened. The child shell burst apart, dissolving into floating shards of reflection, and the first memory stepped into view fully. For the first time, it was taller than the trees, its body made of shifting panes of glass, each pane holding a different memory. Its limbs were elongated shadows, its head twisted slowly with faces blooming and dissolving across its surface. It was every fear she ever had, every memory it ever consumed, every shadow the creek had ever cast. It spoke. "We are you." Emily trembled but lifted the medallion. "I am ending this." The first memory moved closer, each step bending the ground beneath it. Its mirrored body reflected her past, her pain, her childhood fear. It wanted to overwhelm her, break her, make her forget who she truly was. But Emily pressed the medallion to her chest. Her real memories, her true ones, flashed through her mind. Her mother's hug, her father's laugh, the smell of the cabin porch in summer, warmth, love, reality. The medallion blazed with golden fire. The first memory stopped. Emily screamed and thrust the medallion forward. Light burst outward, cutting through the realm, through the first memory's body. The creature convulsed, its structure cracking, its stolen memories shattering into pieces. Emily shouted, "These are my memories, not yours." The first memory roared, a sound of thousands of voices crying out at once. Its body collapsed inward, folding, shrinking, tearing itself apart as the golden light consumed it. Emily pushed harder. The ground shook. The sky split. Doors in the distance shattered. The realm began to collapse around them. The first memory staggered backward, melting like wax beneath fire. It forced out one final whisper. "We remember you," Emily yelled, and I remember myself. With one final burst of golden light, the first memory exploded into shards of glass and shadow. The realm screamed. The ground opened. The sky tore apart. Emily was lifted into the air by the collapsing whirl. As everything dissolved, she closed her eyes. The last thing she heard was silence. The next thing she felt was grass beneath her palms. She opened her eyes slowly. She was back in the real forest. Ben knelt beside her. Harold crouched behind him. Both looked terrified and relieved. Ben whispered, "Emily, did you do it?" Emily took a slow breath. For the first time since she was a child, her mind was quiet, completely quiet. She nodded. "It is gone." Harold exhaled shakily. "You severed it." Emily stood slowly, the medallion dim but warm in her hand. The creek nearby rippled gently, reflecting only the sky and trees and nothing else. Emily whispered, "I am free." But as the three of them turned away from the creek, the surface rippled once, just once, as if something far beneath had moved, and then it went still, completely still. The story ends here. Thank you for watching and listening to the whole story. Please subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell to listen to the next stories.